Thanks.
Sure. All right, so we're gonna open the public hearing at 6:05 for the special permit application for a proposed emergency communication tower for the property located at 0 Osborne Road, Ballfield Complex, applicant Borough of Naugatuck.
No. Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Ken Baldwin. I'm a lawyer with Robinson and Cole of Hartford. Here tonight on behalf of the Borough of Naugatuck and Tarpon Towers, a special permit application that is before you to establish an emergency service communications tower at Delgado Memorial Park on Osborne Drive here in Naugatuck. Let me make two quick introductions of the team that you'll be hearing from tonight. Matt Cohen. Matt is an emergency service communications consultant that the borough has been working with. Matt is with Servium Solutions LLC, and he's going to be talking to you tonight about the need for the facility that is the subject of the application, other sites that have been selected, and he's going to team up with folks from your emergency service providers to talk about their need for improved emergency service communications here in the borough of Naugatuck. Tom Johnson is a professional engineer with Proterra Design Group, and he'll be talking about the site plan in particular.
Can you put the mic a little closer? People are short.
They don't have the best.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So Tom Johnson is a professional engineer with Proterra Design Group, and Tom will be talking about the site plan in particular, aspects of the development, access, the size of the facility, and the important site information that you might find important as a part of the special permit application. Also here tonight, in addition to the folks from the borough, is Ken Curley. Ken is the Executive Vice President for Project Development with Tarpon Towers. Ken will be available to answer any questions you might have for Tarpon in that regard. Again, this is an application for an emergency service communications tower exclusively for use by the Borough of Naugatuck and its emergency service providers. Something that is sorely needed here in the borough. We have Matt kind of walk through what the needs are and what his company has done to assess those needs and to determine that this location is where the tower needs to be in order to work best for the borough. Matt.
You should all have a good evening. Matt Cohen. You all should have a copy of the presentation. It's also on the screen for anybody that is watching remote. Just a little bit on my background, very brief. I worked in telecommunications for 25 years, managed several large telecommunication projects throughout Connecticut, including a Fairfield County system overlay. My background is in emergency services, actually starting in Naugatuck, working as a paramedic for Naugatuck until moving on to the fire department, managing telecommunication systems. For the record, to submit evidence in the meeting last month with the planning committee, we're asked to provide a letter from the engineering firm. So this is from Motorola Solutions, the principal engineer, validating that the Delgado Field is the best site on the system. So, kind of my goal right now is first just for the air of transparency, say that I was hired on behalf of the borough to represent the borough's interests. So I don't represent any of the vendors that are here or the vendors that are providing the system. I was again brought in by the borough to represent the interests of the borough. So kind of my goal right now is to kind of paint as clear a picture as possible to try and get you through an old technology jargon and the stuff that goes through in the background to kind of present to you why it's important that this project goes through, how we evaluated all of the potential sites that were available to us, and how we kind of came to make the determination that the Delgado Field site is significantly the best site for this project. So, and kind of what brought us in. I'll just give you a look from
Hey, just give me a look, kid.
Right. So kind of what brought us here tonight is system upgrades are needed. When we look at the borough's communication system, they have several large hindrances that affect their operations and their ability to deliver effective emergency services, especially in larger incidents where different agencies have to work together. The legacy systems, whereas the police department is probably the best off right now. The legacy systems are due for replacement. The mobiles and portables, which we'll call subscriber units, coming on. So again, think of your subscriber on your cell phone. That's kind of the mobiles and portables that are used out in the field. Mobiles being the car radios, and portables being what are strapped to the officers and firefighters and EMT heads. All their subscriber units are out of date, no longer supported. And so kind of what was brought, or what we started probably about 2 years ago now, was a wholesale review of the communication systems of the borough that were being used, what the options were for replacement and upgrade of those systems, and what was going to give the borough the most efficiency and best performance out of the system options that were chosen. So based on that research and findings, it was decided that joining the state system, Connecticut Land Mobile Radio Network, was going to be that best option. We'll get into some of the technology that's associated with that system, why it's the best. But what it does is it's going to overcome several limiting factors that they face currently, such as multiple dead spots within town, and we have emergency services personnel available. I'm going to get to Chief Kelly on the Sooner side, just because he has some time constraints right now. But so I'll get with him in a few minutes to kind of give the EMS side and their testimony of the difficulties that they experience on a daily basis. We also have no or limited interoperability. So right now, for the most part, technology is kind of isolated based on its bands of use. So you know, your VHF spectrum, UHF spectrum, don't worry, I'm not gonna get too deep into that, but UHF spectrum and 7-800. Right now, Naugatuck kind of runs the gamut on it. So police department is in UHF, fire department is in VHF, EMS operates in 7-800 on the state system. So unless you purchase a multiband radio, your radios cannot communicate. There's a technological blockade that does not allow them to communicate directly. So that does complicate joint operations and scene operations. Other hindrances, when one of these agencies performs an improvement on their system, it doesn't help any of the other agencies in the community. So, for example, the police department currently operates on 5 sites to get the coverage that they deem necessary. Fire department has 4 sites, and EMS has no sites in town, which again further complicates their coverage issues. So if the police department was to try and address some of their coverage gaps, that's not going to help anybody else. The benefits of joining the state network is that all the infrastructure on that network is a shared infrastructure as part of a trunked radio network. Lack of capacity. Yeah, all the agencies that are currently in town are using conventional radio systems. It means there's a dedicated antenna and base radio for every channel that's in use. So there's no scalability, there's no increasing capacity for these agencies as they grow or acute incidents or even planned incidents. It's what they have is what they have. Again, migration to a trunked radio system takes the infrastructure and shares it and its capacity as needed. So again, their ability to have scalability based on the agency needs is exponentially grows. And again, we touched on updates for one, benefit all of the agencies involved. So what we did first was we start simple, right? We know what sites are already built for public safety coverage, what achieves. Now, what's really important to remember is what helps you in UHF isn't necessarily going to help you in the other bands. There's different physical properties associated with the different radio wavelengths. So what we start off, let's look at the existing infrastructure that's used by public safety today. What can we reuse to try and gain our desired coverage, which is to meet the public safety standard, 95% portable on hip. Why we use portable on hip coverage? Because your body is a lot of water, some more than others, a lot of salt, And that acts as an attenuator for energy that's being radiated out. So to try and do worst case scenarios, because again, that's where people are wearing their radios. We want to try and account for worst case when we're doing coverage analysis. It's in the vendor's best interest for us not to use that standard, because then they get to build less coverage for comparable costs. So we want them to measure it, how they're going to wear it, how they're going to use it every day. And then we want that contractual guarantee of 95% coverage. Based on the assessment, so again, we loaded all of them, and we'll get into how the testing mechanism went after we talk about what sites were considered. So based on the existing public safety standards, it was determined that one site had a marginal benefit, that being the Maple Hill site that's currently used by police and fire, but it was not a significant contributor to coverage on the new system. So that one was ruled out. All the other public safety sites were not significant contributors. Many of them are low-lying in areas used as fill sites. So they were made to be kind of targeted for specific areas. And with the cost of new radio systems, the goal is to get as much coverage as you possibly can with each site. Then we moved on to existing cellular sites. So we identified all the cell sites that were available within the town. Again, there's no need to build additional infrastructure if it's not needed. We did coverage analysis using the existing cell sites. It was determined that none of the existing cell sites, again, significantly contributed to coverage on the public safety radio network. So there were certain needs analysis that were identified, or that are basically used to measure the effectiveness of a site. Number one is the most difficult, are microwave paths. So microwave is used as the backbone. So it's a network. It's a simulcast network, meaning that transmissions come off of multiple sites all at the same time to really penetrate and fill those gaps, fill all areas of the community. So microwave is what transmits the data and the links between the towers. So that's critical. There are alternatives, such as fiber connections, but that exposes certain vulnerabilities as well. All it takes is vehicle to take a pole down, tree, sever a fiber line that you're critical and dependent on, and your simulcast network is dead. So really, microwave is the standard that is used for this, unless it's absolutely not tangible at all. Second criteria, and again, this is critical, this contributes to overall coverage. Typical trunking site has about $1.2 million worth of equipment on it. You don't have to always use the best sites, but you then have to put up more towers. So the goal, almost across the board, in the interest of fiscal responsibility, is to try and attain a coverage standard with as few sites as possible. Not only is there the upfront cost, but then you have the long-term ongoing costs of annual maintenance, system infrastructure replacement at the end of life. So again, it very much behooves the community to put up as little infrastructure as possible to gain this coverage. An important criteria is the availability of land. Is land acquisition necessary for site? Is the land feasible to be used? Are there issues associated with that land? And the last, which is a consideration, it's not a make or break factor, but it is consideration, is the availability of existing utilities. Utilities become costly depending on how far you have to run them, how much topography has to be altered to run that, ground composition for any underground lines, utilities, things like that. So it is a consideration that's taken into account as a factor as far as the overall cost of the project. So when we got into site evaluations, again, we looked at existing sites, we looked at the cellular sites. We also took all of the sometimes random parcels of property that are town owned in the community. And ultimately we devised 19 possible site locations out of that did not require land acquisition. Most of these were on borough property, and some of the cell sites that existed are not on borough property, but they have the ability to lease space if needed. Some of them, again, were on private land, on existing towers. And so the four criteria plus others that we just identified were used by the design engineers, which is made up of several engineers. There's engineers from Motorola Solutions who's designing the project itself. The statewide system is a Motorola system already. So we have to expand off the Motorola system, but it's overseen by Connecticut Telecom Services engineers that, again, they're in the same boat as I am, where they're not selling the goods. Their job is to manage the system and make sure the system is built out as state employees in the best possible way, for best efficiencies for all users statewide. So we'll go over, just in the interest of transparency, what these 19 sites were that were looked at. You can either read them off or you can see them.
No.
No. So just take a quick look. There's 2 slides of them. These are the sites that were evaluated. Many of them did not have desirable topography, meaning that the towers or the sites themselves were surrounded by hills, which drastically cut down in that signal propagation that gets broadcast out, which again starts to kind of cross into, do we need to add 3rd or 4th tower site into these locations to fill those sites? Other ones either didn't have utilities. One that ranked pretty high up initially, it's going to be on the next slide.
So did the towers have to have a line of sight to another tower?
They do as the microwave. Microwave is direct line of sight. If you have a variance more than several inches off direct line, you are not going to have a microwave connectivity. So again, that really limited a lot of these sites got ruled out based on no ability to connect backhaul to them. We had decent luck with Warren Ave. That one became an issue with topography, access, and also microwave was very questionable. The trees grew too much further, and they were going to start interfering with the microwave path from there. So, yeah, we kind of went back to the drawing board because, again, that was one of the earlier sites that were identified as a possibility. Went back to the drawing board, and that's where Delgado Field was added in somewhat late in the game, and that one checked off every single box in the evaluation process. Anyone need to see these further?
No.
Okay. So the end result of the study, and again, this was evaluated not only from, I don't want to say subjective, the engineers are use objective analysis, but they interpret the data. But they also use complex software to make these calculations out and assess what is going to give. Basically, it breaks the town into multiple grid blocks, figures out how many grid blocks should, in theory, get coverage. This is all theoretical until the stuff is built. It's engineered theoretical, so it's very accurate. But what are those grid blocks that are going to be covered? What is going to give us the best coverage overall? What is most likely guaranteed to give that direct microwave path? What has utilities already run to it? And what is not going to require major site work and civil engineering to get that site run. The end of that research that was, again, formed by Motorola Solution engineers, validated by the state employed system engineers. It showed that the best and one of the only sites meeting all critical, important, and considered factors was Delgado Field for the state. I'm assuming. We hit on a lot of these, so I just kind of skimmed through them. Again, when we're looking best overall coverage with fewer sites, we kind of hit that one early on. Cost benefits, sites, most basic statement, sites equal money. Again, benefits of less thorough infrastructure. They took into account, again, another factor is population density, the area, and the buildings that it serves. So, what we do is we have to look at what buildings they got. A stone building, for example, is going to have very drastic penetration qualities than a wood frame residential structure. So that loss has to be accounted for. So really the goal, and we look at, which you'll see later on, is the heat map of the emergency responses in the borough. So we can identify where they go the most and what do we have to cover for their critical areas. We also took into account and had the borough provide a list of what they deem to be critical infrastructure, such as schools, healthcare facilities, basically any mass gathering areas that they may have to operate together inside of a building for an extended period of time. So we took that into account. We looked at population density and coverage. And we found that the Delgado site, which again, I'll show you on the heat mapping, fills a major gap in that dense population area of the southeastern portion of town, where there's also a high level of commercial buildings, many of them being steel and concrete, which have very difficult penetrating qualities for radio signals. So having that tower site nearby allows that power to be focused into those buildings, which are going to be difficult to get signal in and out of. And then we talked about Hydra being the software that was used to analyze, and basically it spit out what its recommended site was, which was Delgado Field. Yeah, we kind of hit the first two items, kind of beat those ones in there. So 1.2 miles around the circumference of Delgado Field had, this is based on the census data and mapping, 10,000 people covered in that footprint. So again, when we think about it, strongest signal propagation is going to be within the proximity of the tower. We looked at some of the sites that were out into wooded areas or more isolated areas. We did a really good job of covering the trees and the deer, but not some of our target hazards, especially covering populated areas where, again, EMS, police, and fire are going to have to respond. When we look at the, again, just because it's trees and open area doesn't make it not important, but our signal propagation is much more efficient because we're not inside of a building. There aren't things, right? You go up to the mountain or you're in the state forest searching for someone or dealing with a brush fire up there, you're not in a building. So again, having that tower located near buildings is important, especially again, as you'll see, they're predominant response areas. This is just a copy of the letter that was submitted to the board. Again, from the principal engineers from Motorola Solutions, validating the findings. So, ignore the gap areas because these are focused on populated areas. So those are not dead areas that are not filled in the borough. So this is the forecasted street level coverage with the Delgado site. So street level meaning the portable is on your hip and you're standing outside of a building. As you can see, it far exceeds the 95% coverage expectancy. Any questions on the mapping? Again, the gaps are not gaps in coverage. They're not building in populated areas, so they weren't assessed.
Those are mostly forests, did you say?
Yeah, that's like the state forest area, up like Guntown Road area. So
Left,
just go backwards. Sorry.
the left side where there's.
Yeah, so this shows what's in it 12 decibel. So this is somewhat subjective unless you go out to every single building and physically measure that loss in those buildings. But generally speaking, your 12 decibel loss is going to be like a new, well-insulated residential building. So low energy windows, good insulation, nice tight house is going to create about 12 decibels of loss as a general rule. So this is now our calculated loss coverage areas inside of buildings. So as you can see, even with the tower directly in the southeastern portion of town, there are still some challenging areas right on the fringe. Yet think of the topography in that area. There's only so much that you can do to overcome gaps in the topography. It blocks signal, does not penetrate mountains, it does not penetrate hills. It will roll over them somewhat, but you always have some level of shading. The signal goes over that hill that it's shaded. So if you move that site far away from that area, that shaded area down in the southeast, it grows and expands into those residential and commercial areas. So before we get into the public safety side of things. These are the heat maps. So this is provided by Naugatuck Police. This is public information available on the website. Chief McAllister looks found on and give you some of the anecdotal, because again, it's important. I can give you an engineering perspective of the system. They can give you the real life. They face it every day. They face where their gaps are. They face the troubles associated with not being able to call for help. They face having to have calls and dispatcher trying to give them their next call, not be able to receive that because of the coverage gaps. So they're going to be
What are the gaps? Like here,
Show them back.
what's, so all these dots?
no. So these are their current call lines. So
Right.
So I'm giving you what we analyzed for where we needed coverage right now. These are not the gaps. They can fill in the real life of what their gaps are on their old system. So if you see predominantly,
If you want to show the next, go back to the next slide. You want to
previous.
show, yeah, the one you had, is that what you're asking, Mr. Chairman, the gaps, the areas that you can't, if the covers that you want.
Right, but you're asking for the existing systems, correct?
Yeah.
Right,
So this is the new.
that's the.
Right, that's the new, I'm asking about the existing.
Existing system, EMS, again, they will speak for their issues, but they have radio problems in most houses. There's no towers in town for EMS. Their nearest tower is in Middlebury and in Bethany.
So if they had a 3-channel radio, that make a difference or no?
No, because it's not channel related. Their radio has to be able to hit physical towers. Police department has some fill sites in New Haven Road, but they have some gaps in New Haven Road in the Walmart area. Fire department has more gaps than the police department because they have one less site, and VHF does less. It's less efficient in penetrating buildings. So again, they'll give you their stories about that.
Yeah.
So again, when we looked at the heat map here, you can see their response, the police department response, which actually does a decent job of reflecting the EMS heat map area and fire department, because the police department responds with those agencies on a lot of their calls. So you'll see there's very few incidents in like the Naugatuck State Forest. Their heat mapped areas are predominantly center of town, downtown area, but you'll also see the red heat mapped areas along New Haven Road, which is why it's important to ensure that those areas have coverage versus, again, the Naugatuck State Forest. So again, there's a lot of data and analysis that goes into like, why are we putting sites where we're like, and what is the methodology behind deciding where those sites are going to go. So again, this is just to illustrate where their response areas primarily are. The next slide is going to show you the fire departments along, which again, as you'll see, red areas along the Route 8 downtown area. And then you'll also see again, a heat area, a couple heat spots down in the New Haven Road southeast area, which again correlates to the coverage provided by Delgado Field. So I think turn over to Chief Kelly from Naugatuck EMS, where again, he's going to give you some real life experience.
Yeah.
I gave you the engineering, the analytical side. He's going to tell you what they have to deal with. Chief Kelly.
Good evening, folks, and thank you for bearing with me here on Zoom. I just got a couple of things for you. Reliable communication between EMS crews, our dispatch center, and the other emergency services in town are essential. And it's essential to providing safe, effective, and timely patient care. Not only is it a necessity in providing good and timely patient care, but it's imperative to the safety of both our crews and our patients. It ensures that critical information is shared quickly, resources are coordinated efficiently, and crews can request the assistance needed whenever they need it, which can happen at any second. In emergencies where seconds matter, dependability communications help protect our providers, improve our patient outcomes, and ensure the right help arrives at the right place in the right time. I'm going to give you just a couple of instances that our communications failed. And these are my personal experiences. I can give you dozens upon dozens, if not hundreds of instances from other crews of mine and my providers in town. These are just a couple of my personal experiences that I've dealt with. And I don't go on a lot of calls, as many as my providers do. I go out and help once in a while and when it gets busy. As it currently stands, Everything that I just mentioned doesn't happen for Naugatuck EMS in the borough. We have found ourselves more times than not in situations where we're unable to reach our dispatch center via portable radio. I personally have needed to exit a home, physically walk out of a home, leaving a patient's side because I had zero radio coverage and I needed to get important information relayed to our dispatch center or somebody else that was responding. I've been inside a medical emergency inside Walmart where I needed to have a bystander call 911 on their phone because I was too involved in patient care and I could not get a radio signal out of the building. They had to call 911, connect me with the dispatch center. The Naugatuck Police Department connected us with our dispatch center, and I was able to relay some important information to the responders that were coming. There was recently a time just over a year ago, we were actively in the middle of a cardiac arrest inside Walmart. Patient was unresponsive. We were providing CPR, and I was unable to give the other responders that were coming to assist us the information that they needed, nor was I able to contact the hospital to give them the information that they needed to get ready for this patient that was coming. Fortunately, we were able to get that information relayed once we got out of the building and on the way to the hospital, and that patient lived. Thank God. Thank God that patient lived. There's been times where crews have been attacked by patients in homes or facilities, and they have not been able to get in contact with our dispatch center. Again, these are literally life and death scenarios. Okay. Those are just a few examples of clear reasons why this tower is so important, where it is, and the reasons that it needs to go on that spot. The safety of everyone, not just the first responders in town, but everybody that we respond to and the visitors that come in and out of the borough will rely on this. So that's what I have for you folks. Those are just a couple of instances. I could give you more. Every single day we battle a situation where we go somewhere and we just can't communicate with the people we need to communicate with.
Thank you, Chief Kelly. So before we turn it over to Chief McAllister and Chief Hanks to give their perspective, I just want to hit on really quick. We certainly, we understand and empathize with those that may not be proponents of this. We understand their reasoning. We understand some of their concerns. That's why we're here, is to answer their questions, make sure that they feel at ease in the decisions that were made. So, again, just as an example of areas that are looked at by the engineers of these towers before they're even built, there's going to be concerns about the RF, the radio frequency exposure, things like that. That's already been looked at in the site engineering design. The microwaves themselves, as we touched on, are a very direct point-to-point focalized beam, broadcast 150 feet up. The wavelength of the 11 gigahertz microwave that's planned is approximately 1 inch. It's a straight line, 1 inch broadcast, focalized beam from one tower to the other tower. As far as the radio frequency exposure associated with the general tower itself, I'll reference a study done by the state using one of their old line sites that, again, is the infrastructure is based off of that. Most of the state sites are pretty much identical. There is height variations, but the construction and components of the site are pretty much standard. They did an FCC exposure analysis based on the general public exposure. They found that the general public exposure limit, now this is directly in front of the antennas, so assuming the individual is 150 feet up in the air, looking at the antenna, it became safe for general public exposure at 25 feet away from the tower. The ground exposure limit was safe by FCC standards. Again, this is not, it's not a discretionary thing. We don't get to set the standard to say, you know what, I'm not going to do it at this site, but we're going to do it at this site. The site and exposure limits are established by the FCC. That's allowable, what's healthy for people to be exposed to. So the state, when the site was analyzed in Old Lyme, might be East Lyme, sorry, but one of the limes, the site that was examined had safe thresholds throughout the entire ground coverage. So whether you were at the base of the tower, up to infinite distance away, it never crossed that safe threshold. So again, unless somebody is 150 feet up in the air, 25 or less feet away from the antenna site, it will meet the FCC established standards for safe exposure for RF. So again, certainly, we're going to answer any of their questions that they have. And again, we can certainly empathize with their concerns. But it's important to understand that again, for the benefits of the public's interest, this was the most reasonable and prudent site location to be picked. Turn it over to Chief McAllister. He goes to one.
Thank you everyone on board for hearing us tonight. We just also understand as I lead in, I may be vague about some of the areas where we've experienced some of our difficulties. The radio coverage, I'm going to speak generally just for the operational safety of my officers. I don't want to publicly disclose vulnerabilities in our system for radio communications for obvious reasons. But I do feel comfortable saying that the area in question that we are addressing tonight is one of the areas that we face challenges and difficulties. Particularly the commercial areas around New Haven Road. Walmart is responsible for, as of last year, over 3% of our call volume, immediate vicinity around it. Just have some statistics I'm going to reference for the board tonight to understand why we're trying to augment and improve our radio coverage in that particular area through the construction of this particular site. In 2021, Naugatuck Police had 552 calls for service at its immediate vicinity. In 2022, we had 507. In 2023, we had 638 calls for service. And in 2024, we had 442. And in 2025, we had 867. So we were going from between 2 to 3.1% of the entire police department's calls for service in that immediate vicinity. That's type of construction, the steel frame and everything has posed challenges for our officers when communicating with dispatch. Again, receiving a large number of call volumes in there in that immediate area. This site will help address that. The public information that I did provide through that slide is available on our website. The public's more than welcome to interact with that data. If you view it on our prime dashboard, you can see the call volumes in the heat map, which shows a large number of calls outside the downtown area, move down into New Haven Road, Route 63, as well as the Indian Hills residential neighborhood. Discussing this too, offering up an anecdotal story too, dealing with some of the radio coverage issues that we've had up over the years. When I was a young patrol officer, I was actually dispatched to a call up there in the residential neighborhood and found a emotionally disturbed male who's in the process of harming himself in the lower level of his residence and been interrupted by a family member. When I went into that residence, immediately stopped him, but then the male retreated further inside the residence into an interior hallway. Physical struggle ensued between me and this party, and at that point, I was calling for assistance on my radio and couldn't be heard because I was within that depths of that residence and because of the radio coverage issues that we have. Eventually, I was able to pin the male up against the wall, and a family member was able to call 911 on the landline and get assistance. Eventually, other officers were able to respond up there. We were able to secure him. And it was after that point that we discovered he's trying to enter a room where he had a long gun with his intentions, never know. Very unfortunate that it ended that way. We were able to restrain him before the situation was escalated. So as your chief of police, but as a patrol officer, I personally have experienced many challenges. But Chief Kelly was saying too, challenges EMS has out there contacting their dispatch as well too. We're looking for improvement on that. But I know for a fact my officers out there face coverage challenges in this area. New Haven Road is a developing area part of town. It's important that we do increase radio coverage through that part of town. It's also going to address some of the residential constructions. I believe that we do owe it to the residents of that part of town to ensure they have adequate coverage and ability for officers to communicate. Often these situations can change and dynamic, they can escalate, they can involve a life or death type situation. This site addresses all of that. And I think it's important that we take all of that into account. So
this point, I'd like to turn it over to Chief Hanks unless you have any questions for me specifically. So.
You're good. Good evening, and thank you for taking the time tonight. I'm not going to repeat a lot of the points that were mentioned, but from the fire department standpoint, as Matt mentioned, we are a topographically challenged town. If we were a shoreline community or in central Connecticut, we put up one tower, we'd be done. Naugatuck being the valley, the big hill in the middle is a huge impediment to fire department communication. My gaps are somewhat similar to the police department, but are also different since we are operating on a different radio frequency. The New Haven Road corridor south of Walmart is a huge challenge for the fire department. My firefighters, when they're on scene with their portable radios, have extremely difficult times, sometimes cannot communicate that to the dispatcher. Motor vehicle accidents, oil spills, smoke and building calls, fire calls become their problems. We're a small fire department. When we have a fire, we rely on mutual aid. We rely on our partners strong. All of our strongly balanced. If I'm on scene at a fire scene with my portable radio, I need to give directions to my dispatcher to those companies. We actually need them to come in. We need additional resources, but what do I want them to do? And we cannot make that communication. Motor vehicle accidents, we get a lot of motor vehicle accidents on the Haven Road corridor, including Candy Road. I personally have been to more rollovers of cars on Candy Road than any other road in town. We have no communication back to the firehouse. You get on scene. Firefighters in their bulky gear, cell phones were brought up as an option at one time. We can't use cell phones. Gloves, masks, they're not waterproof, so cell phones are out for backup communication. So this radio system is a big lead for us. We operate on one channel. We have one frequency for the fire department. If I have two incidents going on, if we have fire watch going on at the high school, we're all on the same channel. We're all communicating on each other. That becomes a problem. Police department and EMS have the same issue. Speaking for Kyle Kelly, it's not uncommon for there to be 3 or 4 ambulance calls going on simultaneously. We're all on one channel. The advantage of this network, this system, is that it allows us to share channels and not interfere with each other. We don't use the word channels anymore, we use clock groups. It takes the existing radio channel and it splits it up digitally and it puts multiple communication on the same frequency. Very similar to how your cell phone happens. So it's a huge leap in technology. Were we not to do the system and upgrade our existing system, we're probably talking $2 to $3 million just to give us what we have now with newer technology, without increasing capability, without increasing our capacity for communication, and more importantly, not to allow the agencies to talk to each other. I bring up about Barry for Neil, but August 2024, we had that terrible flood that devastated the west side of town. We had no communication between police, fire, EMS, and public works. And that's the other part of this we're bringing is public works. Because of that breakdown, on the inability to interoperate and communicate, we were duplicating calls. We would go, police would call, then we would go, and then public works would be there. And so say, someone's been here already, you know about it. Other calls would drop because we could not communicate and keep a list of what we would call. The interoperability becomes a huge component for us for any emergency, whether it's a flood, snowstorms, hurricanes, tropical storms coming in. With the reconfiguration of the police dispatch center, with the addition of this state-of-the-art communication system, we're going from 1970s technology to 21st century technology. I want to thank you for your time listening, and this is the right time. We've been working on the project for 2 years. We've got very tight timelines, and we're looking forward to having this completed.
I have one question for you.
Sure.
You mentioned public works. Will they be on this system?
Absolutely, yeah. Part of our planning when we initially did this is most towns look at police, fire, and EMS as the public safety agencies. We consider public works as their part of also. Whether it's road closures, fixing infrastructure, they are our partners. They don't have lights and sirens in their trucks yet. But
Yeah, certain lights.
certain lights, yeah. But, yeah, they are. So we're including public works in this.
But the importance is that there's several large hills in that area that we have had issues with buses having issues in the wintertime.
Yes.
And to get plow trucks to buses and to get them up and down hills. So to have it on that network, it works.
We're frequently called for ambulances that can't get, during snowstorms, can't get, they need the fire trucks need routes plowed to dedicate. And what our radios, we can't reach sometimes our own men, and when fire department needs us, they need to call us on the phone. So if the foreman's out driving around in a dead spot, then it doesn't happen.
Yeah. Any more questions? Okay, thank you.
Just another quick thank you to Matt to Chief McAllister, to Chief Hanks, and Chief Kelly, who I understand called in from vacation. Gives you a sense of how important this application is to the emergency service folks, which is the entire borough of Naugatuck as well as its people. I'd like to have Tom Johnson come up now and talk about specifics about the site development, the project itself, so you have a better sense of what we're talking about as far as the tower site of Naugatuck. After that, I'm gonna come back and tick through the special permit criteria for you. So give you what I believe is justification for approving the application.
Even got more on.
You have that plan, Jim?
They can like this, right?
Right.
Yeah, don't, is it on the, not on the thumb drive?
Then we may not have. They have.
Okay, yeah, everyone has that set.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll
Okay, before you go, she has a question for Matt.
So, Matt, hi, I was taking some notes because following you was a lot of information. And listening to the chief of police about some of the issues with going into certain residencies. You mentioned on the new site or the new program, there would be a if a variance if they were in the building. You said it was subjective, where it's like a 12 decimal.
That's
If they're inside the building. Does it matter the material of the building? Does it are we creating safeguards with other entities of the borough so we can actually be proactive so we're not looking at another dead zone?
So that's a great point. So yes, we use 12 decibel because again, the majority of area here is residential, which represents again 12 decibel. You know, in that area that is shaded, that has some coverage gap areas, a lot of those properties don't meet that 12 decibel threshold. So 12 decibel is worse than what you're going to have in actuality.
Okay.
Some of the other ways that we do individualized coverage gaps, which I think is going to answer your question very clearly, is there was recent changes to Connecticut building code standards to where new buildings, new constructions of commercial nature, and for significant renovations of commercial buildings. It's the authority having jurisdiction, which would be the borough, their discretion to have them augment the radio system within that building itself. So should there be continued growth and continued large construction down the road in that area, based on those new building codes, the borough could mandate prior to a certificate of occupancy being issued that building builder or / owner augment that radio communication if it's going to create a gap.
Okay, so that brought up a good point. That particular device is called VDA. We are in the process of working with Amazon and with Walmart to have those basically radio repeaters sized for that very small area put in those two buildings. As far as the decibel, that's a measurement, and it's a logarithmic scale. So basically, every 3 decibels, you either double or halve the value. So we say that something has negative 12 decibel rating, you can still work it. That signal is cut in half 4 times, and it still works. So to give you an idea of that, yeah, if we get a steel concrete building, it's probably not going to be a problem, but we don't have a lot of those down there. The standard was a 12 decibel drop in signal, cut that signal in half 4 times, and it would still work.
Okay.
They're involved.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You maybe flip to the A1 sheets, probably your 4 slides. There it is. Hi, good evening. As mentioned, my name is Tom Johnson. I'm an engineer with Proterra Design Group. My firm's the one that prepared these plans. What's up on the screen here, hopefully everyone can see it. It's just an aerial photo overview. Hope to give you a little bit of an idea of where the project is located, what it's going to look like on the ground, what it's going to look like in the air. Just give you a little bit of what the dirt and steel proportion is going to look like. For folks who are familiar with the area, it's up at the ball field off of the end of the cul-de-sac on Osborne Road. What we're proposing to do is build a compound on the ground. It's roughly 50 feet by 80 feet. That compound will be surrounded in a fence. It'll be surfaced with loose stone, and then within the middle of that will be a 160-foot tall steel monopole. As I'm kind of standing up here, I
One off to the side.
see one right out the window out here. That's the type of tower structure we're talking about. It's a single shaft steel structures. And then actually even closest to us here are called whip antenna. And it's similar to what you can see off the roof here. Those would be mounted up on the top of the towers. Maybe scroll one more page to the A2 sheet here. This is just a little bit of a blow up, a closer view of the site plan here. You can see the ball field off to the right on this page, cul-de-sac at the top of the hill off to the left. The compound is proposed to be constructed off of this western edge of the existing gravel parking lot. One of the things we've done here for planning purposes is lay out the parking lot efficiently. So to make sure that we can maintain good parking in the area. Right now, it's kind of an unusual shaped gravel area. Parking isn't efficient, but by squaring off one edge of it and the point here, part of the project is not to pave this or stripe it. It's we're gonna lay it out in a way that it is efficient and can support most cars parked in that same area. Along the compound fence, it'll be chain link. Within that, it'll be privacy slats, so it'll screen from the ground view. And you can see all along that western edge, we've proposed double row plantings to again help screen the lower compound section. There's existing and proposed contours on this plan. They're a little difficult to see. The existing are the dash. Proposed ones are the solid lines. The intent is to take the edge of the parking lot, build it out further, fill it out to construct the compound. The tower itself has a buried concrete foundation below grade. And then within it is where the ground radial equipment goes. Those are small cabinets. They're vandal resistant steel, weather resistant cabinets that sit on a concrete pad. You can see that kind of in the top left side of the area there. That is connect the equipment to the underground with electricity. That's going to be run from the street. There's already utilities feeding the field area. Our intent is to follow that same path and then to turn and run to the compound underground. Be a small transformer at grade, and from there a little meter center that feed the equipment. From the ground equipment, there's cabling that runs inside the shaft of the tower, and then up on the top of the tower is we call an antenna frame. That's where the antennas are mounted. There are whip antennas, and then there's what we call dish antenna. That's what Matt referenced before. That's to provide the point-to-point communication. Calls it backhaul. That's how it connects to the internet system. You can see it's a hatched area that runs along the northern edge there. Our intent with this design was to maintain the existing drainage patterns. So from a civil engineering perspective, the water drains a certain way, and our intent is to maintain the way that water drains. There's an existing natural swale there. What we're proposing is to reinforce that swale with riprap stone. At the end of it, we've got a 7-foot by 15-foot level spreader. So that's a concrete curved area with a depression and stone. So any water that gets collected in that swale settle out there, and then it's intended to dissipate the water slowly. So it limits any potential for pollution. Along the whole western edge, so just along the western side of the compound, we have a stone ditch. It's just basically 12 by 12. So the intent for that is to any water that sheet flows across the compound is to infiltrate it into Maybe flip one more page down here. And yeah, and to the right a little bit. There we go. So it's just a zoomed in version of that same compound plan, and then off to the right hand side is an elevation view of the tower. Down at the bottom is foundation below grade, it's the fence, it's the landscape screening. And then the 160-foot steel shaft and the antenna mounting frame up top. There's a lightning rod that goes on the top of the tower. And with these, there's an extensive grounding system that goes in the tower. Let's see. I think you can scroll to the EC1 sheets, about 4 or 5 sheets further on. Just top 3 people what that is. Yep, so this is again a zoomed out overall view of it. Within the design, we've included a number of features to make sure that when it's constructed, we limit any potential for erosion or runoff from the site. This drawing details how we'll wrap the site with silt fence and erosion controls. There's also an area for temporary fence. Now we understand it's a ball field for kids there. So during construction, there'll be a temporary construction fence that petitions any construction activity, ball field activity. You can also down on the bottom of the page see the utility corridor that'll run underground. As part of the construction project, there'll be we call it a construction entrance. It's just a large stone that helps to make sure any dirt that collects in a construction vehicle doesn't make its way out on paved road. I think that's pretty good just for an overview. Happy to answer any questions about the site specific stuff.
So how close is like parcel 7270 to the tower? Like how far away is it?
That in notes here somewhere. I should have mentioned the compound itself meets the front rear side yard required setbacks. Parcel 7270, which is the closest one, I believe it's 272.
Is it 272?
Yes. One of the things that just talk about it quickly, that the tower, if you build a tower, you have to meet a whole bunch of code requirements. It's specific to that site. It says that this tower will meet the ice, it's called TIA code. It has to be built to that standard. The tower's been around now for a long time, and that standard is pretty stringent. It's also the foundation design is specific to that location. So before the towers were built, the geotechnical boring, make sure we understand what's going on in the soil below it.
So what's the minimum distance to build a tower to this house?
So one more step along what I was talking about. So it's a 160-foot tower.
Yeah.
Towers don't generally fail, but theoretically, you can design a tower so that if it were to fail, theoretically, you can increase the factor of safety for the lower portion of the tower. So the tower has to be designed to meet all the code standards. But you could also, from that lower section, you could make it higher than the code standard. And by doing that, you create a theoretical full point to up to. So 160-foot tower theoretically would be, but that's as I say, towers don't often fail, but in this case, I think the plan would be to add additional factor safety in the lower portion of the tower.
I have a couple of questions for you based on the review that I had done that I provided to you guys.
Yep.
One of the things was to talk about any potential lighting in your area. First, I want to say, and Jim might answer this. This is a borough-owned area. The intention eventually is to pave the parking lot. Yes. It's not paved now. We're not expecting them to pave it. It's still going to remain gravel. You don't necessarily put parking spots marked out on gravel. It's not marked out now, correct?
Right.
So I just want to make sure that that really paving the parking lot is not part of it. That would be something later that the borough would do. But in regard to the lighting of the area of where you're working, how will that be? There is a generator in there. How does that operate? Things like that.
Matt Cohen, based on the design specifications for the tower, we had to use the standard state of CLMRN configuration. There's a diesel generator on site with a built-in fuel tank attached to it. Lighting, there's not necessarily a requirement per se for that. So what we've typically done is obviously we're sensitive to the neighbors. The goal is not to light that site up 24/7. There's typically some motion lighting so that if service technicians are required to respond in the middle of the night, as they enter the compound will light up. But again, it's certain variability, again, to be sensitive. I can speak to one of the sites in West, for example. It was located within proximity of an observatory. The lighting was designed in conjunction with the observatory to make sure it didn't mess with their telescope optics, red lighting, directional away. So again, there's a lot of variability in the site lighting itself that can be done to make it more of a good neighborhood.
But is the lighting done so it's specific to be staying in the compound? It's not like a spot.
Yes, no. Again, the goal is not to have lighting always on. It's not to have it, the ground's lit on a regular basis. So again, typically it would be motion based light and then focalized to the entry of the tower method.
And under our review, Jim, when we were looking at it, that's where we discussed about having the slats in the fence. Again, to hide it from the public, it's roughly a 6-foot high fence that you were putting around it, correct? With the slatting around it. We asked for the arborvitaes, along that. I would only ask that when you're planting the arborvitaes originally, they should be at least 6 feet in height. Arborvitaes do grow, but they don't grow real fast, but they grow enough, and that will help again to block it over time. With that, we also mentioned about, is there any other landscaping just other than the arborvitaes that's going to be placed in this?
Yeah, just for the current proposal is along that tree line to the west, and the east is gravel parks.
Yeah, and your gated entry, we're going to put a sign on the gated part as for not parking in front of the gate.
Yep.
Just in case there's a ball game going on.
Yep.
We were cognizant of how long will it take to build this? What's your time frame?
Yeah, sure. The typical construction time from execution to being able to have the tower up, it's approximately 3 to 4 months. The expected build and shipment time for the radio infrastructure is between 12 and 18 months. Once the borough executes their contract, their project gets assigned into a computer project management mode, which will give them the anticipated ship dates. So again, 3 to 4 months for the tower itself, preferably not over winter months for construction on that, and then 12 to 18 months for delivery and installation of the radio.
But the square tower part area relatively is 3 to 4 months. So that's what's really affecting the parking there.
Yes.
So, and it is our goal, Jen, from what you've told me, that there will be a lower parking lot further on down in someday.
That's a plan, yes.
And the easement area, the electrical area would be going through that area. So we would want to make sure that anything that's down the ground is at a depth that will work with us.
Is it located on your site plan? Is it noted how deep that trench would be for that?
So we typically, this is our permitting set, we'll generate an additional construction set.
Right.
And that's the sort of detail that would be on there. But typically a 30-inch, but in this case where we know there might be some grade changes to, I think the section where we could do.
And we just wanted to make sure that part of it was addressed.
Yeah. I'll just back up, I'm not sure I explained it very well on the parking. The intent with that was to make sure we maintained enough space to be able to put in sufficient parking that meets parking standards, so that's future planning there. To show that the layout works with the space that's left.
Yeah, we want to make sure that any construction fencing goes up, that you'll work with us to know that we're still gonna have some parking available in that parking lot. If this ball season is going on at that time.
Yeah, our intent with, I think it's in this red, you could basically see it around the red line there. That's a movable fence because as the construction progresses, there'll be different needs, but also as the ball field use happens, there's different needs that change.
And Jim, you're all set with all the drainage that was done.
Thank you, go ahead.
I just want to close by quickly going through the special permit compliance criteria that the commission needs to think about in making a decision on this application. I think it's important to get that on the record. First of all, again, pursuant to section 23, Schedule A, transmission, emergency service transmission and communications tower are permitted in this zone, subject to special permit approval and this application. The height restrictions in schedule section 23, Schedule B, don't apply to communications tower by the regulations. The application was deemed complete and has been reviewed by the Naugatuck Police Commission, the Naugatuck Fire Commission. The Inland Wetlands Authority did not need to review the application because there are no wetlands on the property. And as the commission is aware, the planning commission gave a positive referral for the application at their meeting of June 1st this year. We have provided timely notice of this public hearing to budding property owners within 200 feet. We have, for the record, copies of those receipts. Some of the additional general special permit general considerations, section 33.5.1, as stated by Tom, the project area is about 4,000 square feet on a 7.19 acre parcel at Delgado Memorial Field. With respect to the plan's consistency with the plan of development, your plan of conservation and development, there really are no specific provisions in the plan that talk about this type of use. However, as you're well aware, the plan does talk extensively about the overall need for public safety, community health and safety and welfare, which clearly this use is designed to accommodate. You heard from the fire chief and police chief and the EMS chief all talking about the benefits to the public this facility will serve. Traffic and adjoining street capacity in section 33.5.3. Once this site is operational, there is no traffic associated with it. You may get an occasional visit from a technician, but only when there's a need to get to the facility. And then it's usually a technician in a pickup truck or an SUV. So we're not talking about a lot of traffic or high traffic use associated with this facility. Section 33.5.5 talks about parking. I think Tom addressed that well enough as far as existing parking not being impacted at Delgado Field, and there isn't a need for a significant amount of parking for the facility itself. And there's enough room in the compound that even if we needed to get a truck into the compound area, it could actually pull within that fenced area if need be and avoid impacting the parking at Delgado Field. I will skip over for the moment 33.5.4, which talks about property values. I'll come back to that in a second. 33.5.6 talks about the police and fire department needs. I don't think I need to say anything more. You heard from the chiefs talking about the benefits of this facility. 33.5.7, there are no water or sewer needs associated with the facilities. This is a standalone use that doesn't require any type of public utility other than electric power coming through the facility. 33.5.8, there is no impact on existing recreational areas adjacent to the compound. The ball field will continue to be used, the parking area will continue to be used as it is today after the facility is constructed and operational. We talked about lighting, which is referenced in 33.5.9, but I won't bore you with that again. 33.5.10, again, we talked about the tower height, the location, the orientation. Really, this tower was designed to accommodate what the borough needs in order to improve their emergency communications network. And I think Matt did a good job talking about why the tower needs to be where it is and why the tower needs to be as tall as it is supposed to be. 33.5.11 is not applicable. It talks about energy efficient building layouts. And 33.5.12 talks about stormwater drainage issues that I think Tom addressed already. Let me jump back because I think it's important to get on the record. Section 33.5.4 requires this commission to evaluate impacts on property values. It doesn't say you can't think about impacts on property values. It doesn't say that is going to rule the day, because property values are somewhat subjective when you talk about different types of uses. If you go on the internet, as maybe some of you have, there's an endless supply of information, articles, opinions, studies that all relate to property values and towers. I've been working in the tower business for wireless carrier tower companies like Tarpon for 32 years. So I've read a lot of those. I've seen a lot of those. They go both ways. Folks think they impact property values. Other folks think they don't impact property values. I've been in hearings in the state of Connecticut where people have complained that had they known there was no cell service in a particular location, they wouldn't have bought their home. Is that a positive or negative impact? It depends upon your view. So it really varies. There's a lot out there on both sides of that argument. But I want to be clear. We're not talking about a cell tower. This is not, it's a tower like that one is there. But the antennas you see at the top of that tower are carrier specific. Those are AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile antennas. This is emergency service. Now, a tower is a tower, and I understand that. But most of the property value studies see relate specifically to cell towers. The evaluation of the use's impact on property values, again, isn't exclusive to towers. You deal on a regular basis with special permit uses that have to evaluate property values. Uses in industrial zones may impact property values. Uses near transmission lines may impact property values. Water towers, power generation facilities. All of these things may have impacts on property values, but it doesn't mean they don't meet the specific criteria for special permits in your zoning regulations. Matt talked about health effects issues. That's one of the issues that's commonly brought up. People talk about property value effects. And he mentioned that the facility will be well within its standards established by the FCC. As far as visual effects, the other issue we hear a lot about, property values, there isn't much we can do about that. This tower needs to be as tall as it is, and the location it is, based on Matt's analysis and the chief's discussions. I didn't, again, doing this for a long time, I haven't found a way to hide these towers yet. But we do the best we can as far as siting them to reduce those impacts as much as possible. So I think the bottom line is this commission needs to balance. In order to evaluate effectively these criteria, particularly property values, this commission needs to balance the benefits of this facility, which I think are fairly significant, against the ultimate effects. And I think if you do that balance, it's not that there are no impacts associated with this facility, property values and others, perhaps, I don't know. But I think when you balance the benefits to the public with the overall effects of this facility, you will find that this facility is well deserving of your approval. And we ask you for that positive vote tonight. We're happy to answer any questions here.
So, commissioners, you want to wait for the public comments, and then we'll ask our questions. Okay. So I'll open it up to the public. Who'd like to make a comment? Is anyone from the public like to make a comment? Come up, state your name, address, sign your book in a paper.
Good evening. My name is Carl Han. I live on 208 Wisteria Drive.
Right at the, I would say, the circle. Um. I, if I can please, I would like it just to move it along. And this is my home and I sell power in there and that's what I would be looking at and imagine it would be your house.
Which
Great
property,
presentation.
which property do you?
I'm right at the Wisteria, up on the circle, 208, left side of the circle.
The outfield, circle, the outfield.
So is he 7229 or 7228?
He's in that.
Go from that person.
Yeah, but which one?
Which one?
He's
He
exactly.
doesn't know his map.
He doesn't know his map, no. The only.
That's right. Oh.
It looks like 17.
The presentations, thank you, chief, everybody. I'm not a tech, I can't argue, I know we need to upgrade our system, absolutely. I hear a lot about the cost of not doing it, getting different systems and other costs involved, different properties. What I did not hear really was, and you mentioned it earlier, the cost to the homeowner that, and we may argue there is no loss of property value. I argue the other way. Again, on Google, if you go research, the property loss is anywhere between 2 and 20%. The tower is an eyesore, and we all agree that it has to be done. But this committee has to also consider not the 10,000 people. You guys have to consider the 25 homes that have to look at the tower, not necessarily directly my home. I'm looking right at it. There's other neighbors that are right underneath it. That's something to be considered. And my argument is that if there is a loss of property, then I think the responsible thing for those 25 homeowners, depending on where they are located, to get some kind of compensation, whether it's, I'm just throwing out a number, 5% reduction in property tax, or a one-time fee that's being presented to the homeowners that makes up for having to live underneath. I call it monstrosity. I know it's necessary, but it's not a pretty sight. I'd like to ask the question, once the tower is up, it's an emergency communication tower. Is it only going to be emergency communication? Or will there be add-ons later? Cell phone, what have you? That's my question. I don't know if that's, would there be a clause in the contract that it's a communication, emergency communication?
They'll answer the question after everyone speaks.
There will be one thing. So I have like a lot of questions here, but my neighbor asked me to let you know too that, and she took some pictures. I had an email. There are box turtles down there, which are not turtles that necessarily live in aquatic land. They're wooded, and they like to travel between wood areas and open spaces. They're there. I don't know if anybody knows about that. I think by taking more land away from the land that's there already is kind of, in fact,
that wildlife that you. My other question, like I said, the tower probably has to go up. I get it. Is there any option to camouflage the tower? Or is there an option that something will look at maybe? You see sometimes they look like pine trees or something. So we don't have to look at a tower that, that's just saw. I like that to be addressed maybe.
Okay, what else?
And I know there's other people here too. I so I understand there's a grant that was given to the town to get another tower in town, is that right? Or to update the towers in town?
That's not under this issue, so we.
No, not on this one. Oh, okay. And I heard you say cell phone service. I've talked to a lot of people up there, and we don't have any issues with cell phone service, so it's not something that would apply to us here. I think I also researched. There was a study in 2022. The study showed that 23% of the studies show adverse effects such as, I'm not sure if that's true, but higher cancer rate. But I do believe is that biochemical changes and radio frequency sickness symptoms, including headaches, sleeping issue, and memory issues, that can be caused by those radio waves. And it's something maybe to consider. More. That's all I have to say here.
Okay,
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public like to make a comment?
Name is Trevor Fuller.
Oh, wait, yeah, sign in.
As I said, my name's Trevor Fuller. I live at 246 Osborne. I've lived up there for almost 20 years. And I can say getting that letter 10 days ago with short notice was a little, little punch in the gut. And I bought my house up there back in 2008, 2009, hoping to have some peace. And as Carl had mentioned, that yes, good presentations of everything, software, but it doesn't speak about what people feel, how their life is going to be impacted with an antenna that you can't get rid of, along with not knowing what your property values are going to be. Yes, I didn't buy my house with an antenna there. I wasn't expecting for an antenna to be put there. And I think that's a disruption of my life, my quality of life. I get the whole emergency thing. I'm not saying I don't want that, but it wasn't there when I bought my house. Yes, there's a park there. I knew there was a park that was going to be built up there, but not an antenna. So, I think Carl brought up some good questions about camouflage, if we go forward with that, or looking at other places that they designated on there that already have antennas. I don't believe that it's just going to be an emergency antenna that, is there a possibility that it turns into, I wake up one day and there's additional things that are on the antenna that no one told us. So those are all concerns for me. I know that, a lot of people didn't come from the neighborhood, and maybe because, getting a registered letter to your house that you're not expecting to get, no one's sending registered letters to your house with good news. I don't know that many people that owe me money. So I can tell you, getting that letter at my house, I wasn't gonna sign for it either, and I spoke to the man, and it's like, if someone hadn't opened up the letter, he wouldn't know what was in it. So I can understand the fear that people get registered letters at their house. I'm not saying there's another way of doing it because you gotta do your job, right? You have to prove that, yes, you were notified. I went through this with the lights up on the field going years back. I never got a notification. I'm 200 feet from there if it wasn't for my neighbor notifying me that, there was a hearing about the lights. But yeah, those are all my concerns. I know if the team lives directly, it's going to be worse for him because he lives at the top of the hill and the antenna proposed is right out his front door. At least I have some shielding, but if the team is like sitting right in the front of the antenna along with kids. So I can understand his concern. I'll just leave it at that. I don't know if they or team.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else from the public like to make a comment? Is there anyone else from the public that'd like to make a comment? Yeah. Anyone else from the public here wants to make a comment? How about online?
Online, you raise your hand.
Anybody online that would like to make a comment, just put your hand signal up.
All right. You want to address some of the concerns?
Sure, please, if I missed anything, but, I heard from Mr. Hahn, first on the health effects issue, I think, Matt addressed that the facility will operate well within the FCC standards that have been established, safety standards. Less than 1% of that standard, so 99% below what the FCC would permit, from facilities like this, from an emissions perspective. So again, lots of studies, but communications providers like Borough of Naugatuck, this type of equipment have to comply with that standard that has been established by the FCC, and we can demonstrate that we will. As far as habitat removal, there aren't very many trees coming down at all in this facility. A lot of the area that would be used for the compound itself is already cleared. There will be some trees along that western edge that will have to come down, but it is not a significant tree removal project. It just doesn't have to be. So I would suspect that similarly, there aren't any real habitat issues that we need to be concerned about. Like I said, this is a town emergency service communications tower. Can it be used for cell service? Any tower can be used for cell service. I can tell you that from Tarpon Tower's perspective, they deal with a lot of cell companies all the time and have reached out to cell companies about this site. At this point, no cell carriers are interested in this site. That doesn't mean they might not be interested 5-10 years from now. But if they do want to share this facility, there's a process. The reality is that the state has a policy against the unnecessary proliferation of towers. So if there's an existing tower somewhere, the Borough of Naugatuck, that a carrier wants to use, then I think strong consideration is given for them to share a tower rather than to go out and try and find another location to build another tower themselves. So I think ultimately, if that happens, not on the table today, may not be on the table ever, because again, right now, there's no interest by any of the other wireless carriers. That's something we'd have to deal with at that time. That's something the town would be engaged with because it's town property. That's going to be a Tarpon Towers facility.
But just understanding that we, as the zoning commission, don't have any say.
Ultimately, if a cell carrier needs, you'll get notification of that. But if a cell carrier decides they want to share this facility, there's a process at the state level of cell tower share application that they have to demonstrate that they meet the criteria for that application process, including, by the way, that the additional antennas would still comply with the FCC standards for our information.
So what would that do for activity if all the cell tower, all the providers on the cell tower? How would much activity will that cause?
If you get the three major carriers to add cell antennas and equipment onto that site, and 3 more SUVs or pickup trucks. Because they're gonna be out at this site even less than the town's emergency communications technicians will be. Because it's, again, the equipment nowadays, you set it, forget it. You don't have to go out to the site. Everything's monitored remotely, as I'm sure this facility will be. So there's no need to go to the site unless there's a problem, and you'll know there's a problem by dealing with it at some central station, which is monitoring all activity at the site. And that's when you send a technician. Otherwise, no one has to get into the site at all.
Could you explain any changes to the site? That site have to get bigger, tower have to get higher.
No and no. There's enough room within the compound. Cell carriers tend to add cabinets, size of refrigerators, much like you saw in the plans tonight. Same size cabinets on a pivot pad at the base of the tower. They may add a generator, they may not, for their own equipment. And the tower, while it could get taller if there's a justification, typically the siting council doesn't allow for the increase in height of towers, especially those that have been developed in this fashion. The other thing to think about is that all of the town antennas are going to be at the top, and they have priority. So if any other carriers, the cell carriers decide to come in, they're going to go below the town. The last point that I think Mr. Hahn raised was camouflaging in the tower. I've been doing this for a long time. You can build a tree tower if you want. 2 important factors. One, it triples the cost of the structure itself. And now you've got a lot of other things to worry about: branch patterns, branch locations. You're building a bigger structure at the base because it needs to support all that additional region. And you need to be concerned about those microwave dishes. You can't put anything in front of those microwave dishes that'll impact their transmission. So all of the equipment at the top of the tower would likely not be camouflaged by any branches that would come out. So they really don't serve a lot of purpose. And frankly, my personal view, when you've got a tower of 160 feet tall that's supposed to look like a pine tree, it doesn't look like it looks like a toilet bus. There are some good ones. That have been built in the state, and they tend to be shorter, and they tend to fit in with the trees around them from different vantage points. I would submit that this is not one of those locations. The other type of camouflage that is often talked about is painting the tower. Some folks will require, like to see it brown from a certain height around the tree line, and then sky blue above. There used to be a couple towers painted by AT&T back in the late 1990s that attempted to find this sky blue color. I've never seen that sky that color in all my years of dealing with these things. What happens to these galvanized steel towers is they weather very quickly. They turn to a very dull gray. And in my opinion, and the opinion of others who've been in the business as well, that tends to blend in the sky a lot better than paint. They get a little shiny at the start, but they quickly dull after they're weathered. So I think they tend to blend in more like that. So there are camouflage options. I don't think any of them are very suitable for this. I think those were the 4 items this was.
So there's no other camouflage spots. What about, 6-foot fence with slats and 6-foot arborvitaes isn't going to do a whole lot, 160-foot attached. That's right. So what about trees that can grow higher, but not clearly 160 feet high?
We can certainly talk about trees that'll grow higher. They will serve some purpose. The cul-de-sac at Osborne is lower, so the vantage point's a little bit different. So those trees that are remaining between the cul-de-sac and the tower itself that we're not touching provide some significant benefit. If you think of the angle of the view, yes, you're going to still see the top of the tower, top portion of the tower. But those trees at that height, plus additional trees that maybe we could plant that grow a little bit taller, provide even a little bit more screening. We're not going to be able to hide the top portion of the tower. It's just not feasible. But perhaps, yes, there's something we can do to find some trees that grow a little bit taller, maybe a little bit faster on that side to help with that screen. Thank you.
Right.
Also, there's one other point that Mr. Hahn raised, which I think you had to deal with compensation. You mentioned compensation, also either directly or by way of some type of tax, this proposed tax consideration. Would you comment on what you think the authority is commission to consider that situation?
I don't think the commission has the authority to order any type of compensation. I've never been involved in a site where the power developer or wireless carrier has offered residents compensation for the type of. However, I'm not a tax lawyer, but I do know of folks who have gone back to their towns and said, as Mr. Hahn said, I think you've overassessed my property, and here are the reasons why I think you should assess it less. If one of those happens to be the view of the tower, then he can make those arguments certainly and seek relief in that fashion. I think that's available to any neighbor, regardless of the use. The ball field lights perhaps is something that they could argue about as well. But that's something that would be done outside of this commission's authority. Would be brought up through the tax assessor's office, and whatever the appeal process exists through the program.
Thank you. One other question about the trees. Are we talking about an additional height? Are we talking about making those trees taller? Something we should sort of indicate we should get from the applicant is to, and maybe staff would, what does the commission have in mind with respect to maybe make on that side there? How, arborvitae's instead of 6 feet or 12 feet? I don't know what.
Yeah.
I can't tell.
Arborvitae's are where they're located, they're down bottom of the back.
They
It's gonna be a while. I wouldn't expect that they'll, ever really do anything more than shield the fence and maybe a little higher. The other thing is, maybe we can plant more trees down by the road. But that may require cutting trees down that are more mature now. We could plant white pines that will get very tall, but it's gonna take a long time. But you're cutting down, more mature trees. I could bring this and see what it looks like now.
So is that something that should we feel comfortable, or we should feel comfortable recommending to the applicant? It's one of the conditions, but recommend the commission to suggest that application. You think so?
The eastern white pine trees, they grow like an average of 137 feet. But that's after mature seed.
But what would you have to take down to do that, to make that happen? I guess it's another question. What would you have to do?
Well, I think that the issue is trying to protect neighbors.
Yeah.
And dealing with their site of the tower. Clearly, you're not gonna do anything at the top. No matter what we do, but at the lower level, something more than 6 feet high of arborvitae's, would that help? And if it can, then we should do it.
Jim, what's your thought about length, or you want to leave that to the applicant to suggest?
I guess I handle it,
Height, species, staggering.
I'd have to investigate it and find out what appropriate.
Why don't I offer this if I could? Understanding the concern, if the commission's inclined to approve the applications with a condition that says we will work with town staff to come up with an adequate landscape plan that addresses the concerns to the extent feasible with your use of the lower portion of the compound from Osborne Drive, something along those lines, so that we know. I think we all know what we're talking about, and maybe we need to spend some time looking at it and getting somebody who knows a lot more about tree growth than I do.
Also, from the perspective of the neighbors,
Sure.
we don't need to plant anything where there's neighbors. Clearly, the people that are right there. What we do to go through that area.
Yeah, understanding that I'm not suggesting it's not money well spent, but it is additional costs associated with that. Right.
So we've done that before, Mr. Chairman, members, we've done this before where we understand there's a landscaping plan provided. Staff might have some suggestions as to how to improve it. And some of that, it may not be final. And at the time, the close the public hearing board, the approval, and he had delegated that authority to staff. There's numerous examples. I have more than my fingers on my hands where we've done that. I'm not sure the staff appreciates it, but they do get delegated that responsibility to really handle the finished landscaping plan with the applicant. So that is something that we have done. You have that authority.
You do, happy to do it.
I'm not sure if that's a smirk or a smile, but he's done it before, that's for sure, because we've delegated that. You've delegated that to him many times.
Yes,
To staff, so it's something
Thank you.
we could do.
Okay, go ahead.
So, oh gosh, I just want to picture everyone. I just, Carl Hahn, 208 Wisteria Drive. I just like I just like to show the gentleman the picture. This is my house. This is actually, I have a tower in there, but it's right there where the tower goes. And you tell me that my house is not go down, because it's just way. And I think we should. I don't think that my value stays the same or it will go up with increases with other properties that surround us. I think we all can save the money with bushes and trees. 160 feet is probably taller than this building here, right? And it is an eyesore, and I get it. We have to deal with emergency service, and it has to be done. I get it, but you cannot forget about the 25 people who have to look at it. I get it. We have to give up the beautiful view of the field and the surrounding woods, but there has to be compensation. There has to be.
Okay, thank you. Well, commissioners, questions for the staff before we. Questions for the chiefs?
No questions for the team.
Question about other towns. How do they compare to communication that we have now? Versus, do all the other towns have towers like that, or is it topography alone that changes us?
Yes, I'm gonna speak anecdotally. That's good. All the radio systems are generally towers, elevated towers. Yes, it's the way that signals are broadcast. There's really no way to achieve same level of coverage and penetration without towers. Many of the towns in Connecticut have cut over to this very network using these same towers. Because again, state in its intelligent means and cookie cutter designs these sites so that whether or not the technicians are going to one in whichever line we were talking about before or Naugatuck, they know what to expect. They know the design of the site. Again, public safety towers are typically designed in the, I don't want to make up a number for average, but in the 150 foot to 180 foot range, again, depending on what topography or construction of buildings surrounding it has to overcome. So again, it's not there's rationale behind it.
I just mean other towns, do they experience the same problems that we're having with
They
communication?
do, it's not across the board. Again, the topography in this town is difficult than towns along the shore. Towns along the shore can easily get away with far fewer towers because they're flat and water signal doesn't get blocked. Areas up towards the Litchfield area have things worse than so again, there's no like set, yes, this town has it better than this town.
I'm just wondering, overall in the state of Connecticut, how often are towns experiencing these miscommunications or these issues with their town? Are we gonna be like one of the better towns to have this new tower?
You will be one of the better towns after this. It's gonna fill in your communication gaps and meet a standard. So again, the towns get to decide whether or not they want to meet that standard or not. There's recommendations, there's best practices that support what this town is getting. The town is making an investment in its public safety agencies and then in addition to its residents and their resident safety by being able to get those resources to them. So the town will be better off than a town that hasn't done an upgrade in 30 years.
I understand.
couple
We're
years.
just trying to.
Yeah, I mean, a couple
see
years from now.
Out of other services, all of towns.
So yes, it's
Yeah.
comparable to industry standard, meeting industry standard coverage requirements, and it's meeting the difficult topography that is given to us.
Well, it's typical of Valley, right? I mean, you're from Torrington all the way
Right.
down to Shelton. We're all hills and valley, and it's why it's the Naugatuck Valley, I suppose. Right? Makes sense.
So I guess I think to help Elaine, is there other cities comparable to Naugatuck in our makeup where they're having as many drops or transmission issues in communication?
There are, again, towns that have legacy, older end of life systems that are not performing as well as they once did, or were not designed to proper specification from the start, are hindered right out of the gate with their new system. So again, our goal was to deliver what the town needs from today, but also take into account potential future expansion for the borough, because we don't want to go and spend a lot of money now to come back 3 years from now and say, you know what, we should do another one here because they'll put a building.
And the percentile of where we are now and where this would place us in, like, I guess, a safety ranking for our public service.
Just the one thing that I just wanted to address with Matt that I think will answer your question too is Naugatuck, and I can speak to Naugatuck, I can't always answer other municipalities. We are unique, and Matt could probably tell you how many comparables to this. We are one of the few municipalities that is on multiple bands for all of our emergency services. That is a unique anomaly. There's not many municipalities that have that. This solution brings us all onto one standardized frequency. So there are other towns that might have other issues, but we are kind of a standout in that sense. So I think that kind of answers your question. That and I don't know percentages, I don't know numbers that you have, but the consolidation onto one common band allowing all three of the services plus DPW to communicate together is a huge augmentation in services. And then I think to your point too that you were asking about is the coverage gaps are spotty based upon each emergency services due to the fact that we're all on different bands. So if you were to say upgrade one band, there would still be dead areas at the other. So you're investing in multiple infrastructures as opposed to just simply one location to cover all of them, because there could theoretically be multiple conversations about multiple towers if we were upgrading the conventional system. So that I think is a very big point to make here is limiting the number of towers and consolidating everybody together to the minimal impact that we're having in the community.
I guess when we're talking about modernization and upgrading, and I know that one of the chief mentioned talk groups. How are we when we implement this service? And I think it's a 12 to 18-month radio project. Are we going to be protected with against cybersecurity?
So you're actually going onto this system protects you a lot from that. So number one, it doesn't touch the internet. It's just a standalone network that's maintained by the state. Part of the program itself and what's implemented through Motorola Solutions has biannual software updates to address security concerns, to ensure that all equipment is kept up to date. Any routers, because even radios have gone computer based. So everything is computer. But built into the plan with Motorola Solutions has guaranteed upgrades for equipment, so such as the routing equipment, networking equipment that connects these sites. If that hardware becomes obsolete or unable to be updated to current versions, it's already built into the contract with Motorola to come and replace that hardware at no cost to the borough. Well, nothing other than the maintenance costs that are built in regardless. So it really does take cybersecurity important. And actually one point that was hit on earlier when we talked about when it was mentioned about site access. Joining into this larger system has huge benefits for the borough. In fact, having this site monitored, so you look at cybersecurity and vulnerabilities. This site, as well as every other state site, is monitored by our network control center with live people in it 24/7. This leverages the ability of, again, the scope and scale of the system to what no municipality would be able to afford in their own. No town is going to build a network control center staff 24/7 with technicians on call, ready to be deployed, because you're buying into a larger system that so many communities, so many state and federal resources rely on. They monitor, they have staff on call with performance guarantees to get people out. A lot of times with this new system that has multiple layers of degradation in it before the responders even know there's a problem, there's technicians on site. They don't even know there's an issue with the site itself.
Right.
Because those failovers and protections cover that.
So, and I have one more question. I think you can answer this as well. How helpful would the system be? I know that we have a lot of like state roads, like New Haven Road and 63 going into Middlebury, and those roads are usually used for high crime transit areas. How helpful would the system be with communicating with other departments? I know that we work with New Haven and other nearby. Would this be able to help with facilitating your duties?
Yes, definitely. So just to build on Matt's point too, that I wanted to hit on was this system's redundancy. So tying into this is essentially an internet type system. So if we were to, for some reason, see one of the towers have a technical issue, physical issue with its infrastructure, it wouldn't knock out our necessarily communication system. We can see a reduction in it, but we would still be tapped into the larger network here too. So in the events of natural disasters, critical incidents, the redundancy is built into this network as opposed to current systems where we're standalone. If we have a tower site issue, we immediately lose that coverage gap and it's on us to immediately get out there and try to repair it, especially if it's a part or there's something else. So we can work at a reduced level and a longer period of time with this much smaller reduction in the service coverage. So I think that's important to hit on too, the original question. The second part of this system is a state system. So Naugatuck works with multiple partner agencies, state, local, and this will increase our ability to communicate. The city of Waterbury is on a similar frequency. We should be able to communicate them much easier now with the ability to have to switch over a program to those frequencies. The coverage will also be able to move to the areas outside of our boundaries. So, I don't want to speak for Chief Kelly, but his ambulance services up at the hospital will be able to call the ambulances back to town much easier right now when they're on out of service or at town and bring them back for additional coverages. You'll see that as well too for Chief Hanks, I'm sure, with the fire department if they're operating at a mutual aid capacity. But again, importantly for my officers, they're often out of town through their follow-ups, cities of New Haven, Hartford, Waterbury. Their radios will be able to operate right there because sometimes that might be the easiest way for them to be able to call assistance, and then we can make that direct call from our dispatch center to get any assistance, additional backup out there. Right now, our radios are only going to work if they can see these towers right there. And our officers do work all over the state. Fortunately, crime is not always tied within our jurisdictional boundaries. So my officers find themselves out and about all over the state on a nearly daily basis, especially our detectives, our members of the regional tactical team, our task force officers, all throughout here. So they're able to communicate back to dispatch in Naugatuck. We know if they're safe, if they need help, or anything else.
I just have one point. You brought up some really good questions. So as far as security, the fire department system is so old, there is no security. $30 radio and a YouTube video you can get on my frequency right now. That is the concern that we have. Chief McAllister brought about EMS. Well, I think EMS transports the other way to hospital. They do not have communications on there. We do mutual aid to Beacon Falls. Fire department radios do not work at Beacon Falls, which will allow us to take advantage of that mesh network and pick up other towers to get communication back. Oh, you mentioned about a safety rating. Is that for the fire insurance?
Correct.
Okay. That's the ISO Insurance Service Office. We are due for an evaluation next year. This system by itself not so much going to help us, but part of the other part of this project is the combination of police and fire dispatch. Because it's a separate project that concur with this one, and that will definitely help our insurance rating next year.
Oh, thank you.
Attorney Fitzpatrick, I have a question for you. This project, not the location per se, but the idea of this radio project. Has this received the approval of the Board of Mayor and Burgesses for the cost effective with it? They're the ones who ultimately made the decision to go with this.
They approved it, I think it was the budget package.
Right, to enter into the contract, so the need has already been
There's been
determined by the highest board in this town.
certainly been the public need has been determined by the Board of Mayor and Burgesses. This commission can consider that. Also, the information from the public hearing gathered here tonight by the various chiefs, the EMS chief, fire chief, police chief, with regard to the what seems to me to be a pretty significant public safety concern. So there is significant evidence of public safety interest in this project without any question.
And it is the responsibility sometimes of this commission to make a decision based on the greater good of the community.
Section 8-2 authorizes the commission to make its decisions and consider the public health and safety of its residents when it's rendering any zoning, creating zoning regulations, districts, and making decisions. It's in the also in section 33 of your special permit regulations. So the commission is certainly within its authority to make those considerations. And you know, the regulations say the word consider. Sometimes not all the considerations are on one side of the equation, and sometimes there are some considerations in favor and some not so in favor. So this commission has traditionally tried to, I think, weigh everything and balance it in a way that reaches the priorities of public safety while also trying to assuage any concerns that maybe neighbors or nearby residents have. This commission has been foremost in their the methods in which they have addressed not just the public need, but the private residential concerns in every application that we've done here. So I think they're well equipped. They're well equipped to make that judgment.
And Mr. Carter, too, for your original question from the attorney, there was the public approval in the referendum as opposed to the borough's law too.
I think this has been an issue for years that we've been dealing with, and there's been a lot of time of trying to do something about it, and this is probably the closest we've been to addressing it, because there's significant issues.
So, commissioners, do you have any other, before I close this, do you have any other questions for the?
It's all been answered.
Okay.
It's all been answered.
I will just want to say this was publicly noticed twice in the public in America and as required by statute. And that the abutter notices did go out per the state statute requirements.
And our regulations.
And our regulations and the state requirement of timely notice. That's what the state says we had to do.
Right. The planning commission has also issued its positive referral.
Police and fire.
Let's hope.
Okay.
All right, so with that, it's 8:03, I'm gonna say January 17th, that I am gonna close the public hearing, 6:05 special permit application for proposed emergency communication tower for the property located at 0 Osborne Road, Ballfield Complex, applicant Borough of Naugatuck. Commissioners, discussion with this, please.
The residents has brought up some, serious concerns. And if I was in their shoes, I would be as concerned as them aesthetically. However, when we're thinking about the 25 homeowners versus the 10,000 people and the likelihood of our loved ones being one of those 800 calls that are just along the New Haven Road, I would want to make sure that my emergency gets to the people that need to service me. And when we talk about the regs and our duty according to what we are held accountable for, I think the attorney mentioned section 8-2. I think that the greater good is to look at the cybersecurity concerns that we spoke about, the lack of unity amongst our emergency services that we have a lack of right now. The issues that we have if we don't have a backup plan that works efficiently, and moving towards something that's modern, more modern than what we have now. So we can make sure that they do their job effectively, but they also come home as well, as safe as they can.
Well said. Will, anything?
No, sir, not after that. Thank you.
And yeah, I would just like to say something for neighbors, because we take it very seriously what residents have to say with all these applications. And I think we've expressed concern and how we can best approve this, if that's what what the commission decides, to mediate for neighbors what they're going to experience. Clearly, nobody wants a cell tower within an eye shot of where they are and their homes. I think we all get that, all of us get that. But at the same time, also heard and know how important, extremely important this is. And the siting, I appreciate the siting issues. It wasn't just, oh, this is a good place, we'll put it here. The fact that they were looking at all these areas just to decide what would be the best. And it seems to be that area. And it doesn't sound from what we were told that there was one of 3 areas that would be the great area for this. So that being said, how we can address for the neighbors is what we can do. And that's why we're talking about how we can camouflage, help the neighbors with different trees instead of just the arborvitaes. I know that will never be enough to take away with the cell tower, the look of the cell tower. But we only have so much within our ability, and changing taxes would not be one of them. That's even within our purview to do. I mean, I could always bring that to the mayor and Burgess's if you want, but so I just want you to know that we are looking at everything and consider and care about what residents say.
Well said. Yeah. So with that, how do we address the public hearing?
Approval with a condition.
What was that?
Approval with
Did you
condition.
close the public hearing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, April 3.
So how do you want to address?
So it would be a condition number 9. The addition of trees to be
Determined by.
determined by
By the land use officer, the Borough of Naugatuck.
and yeah.
Engineering staff.
Yeah.
And I would also like to add to number 5, location, design, and sizing of the proposed dry well. Oh,
Right, well,
no. And I would say to land use staff too, if you would, I mean, we're not out there, I haven't looked from the perspective of other homeowners. You know, what trees or whatever placement will can help them the best to consider.
Well, trees are always gonna be an issue, because at some point, trees get so tall that they do get hit with weather and can drop. We don't have giant sequoias around here. They're gonna be 150 feet tall and a tree getting that tall would cause harm to that tower itself.
Right, so
And as you said, no one wants any type of a tower near their property.
right, but almost any tree can help a little bit.
Right.
Versus a 6 foot arborvitae or a 6 foot.
But it's also difficult to plant a tree that's, I'm not an arborist or whatever you call it, but. You know, to put in a tree that might be 20 feet tall to start, Jim, is that possible? Or
Possible, but it's less likely that they live. It's,
Yeah.
and the smaller the tree is, more likely it's gonna make over that first couple of years.
so that's something that we'll have to look at
Tomato plants.
to come up with, to see.
You have the list.
But
that
yes,
fit.
Yeah, so
So,
we'll find
yeah.
something that's gonna grow, and
Right.
the white pine's coming up, and
Yeah.
something that's gonna go fall. Yeah.
that won't
So-
affect the tower,
Right.
but still create
More,
more.
we have to figure out where we can put them so that, and what size they can go in, so that we don't cut all the trees down.
Right.
It makes it
No,
worse
no clear-
while they're growing. You know, so I have to look, I have to go up there and look around and see where we can put those, and there's a couple of different species. And also we need to look at what the deer are eating. We planted arborvitae on the other side of the field, and the deer found
ate
it,
them up.
just ate it all. So there's a certain variety that's less likely to be. And I don't wanna plant tree that, oh, that's great, it's gonna grow huge, but it never gets there because after a year and a half, they've all been disappeared.
So are you saying, deer are gonna eat all the new arborvitaes around?
No, there's certain arborvitae plants that are deer resistant,
Okay,
that are more likely to make.
alright,
So we've already been up with that. But I don't know how deer resistant the white pine is or whatever that is for this,
But, yeah, you know, there is an avenue for people that feel that their house value is affected.
Yes.
With the zoning, or what's the Board of Assessment Appeals.
Zoning,
The Board of Assessment.
The Board of Assessment Appeals is the avenue.
Right, and
Any taxpayer can take.
that's
appeal
whether
of
it's
their
a house or
assessment.
whether it's a how, you know.
You can take your appeal to that board and they meet once a year.
But you
They have
need
a
to
scheduled
go in
date.
with documentation. You can't just go in and say this tower is causing lower value. You need to go in with an appraisal report. You need to go in with some type of a document that will back up what you're saying. Sometimes the cost of getting that won't benefit you when you get your lowered amount. You know, too much, but houses now in the state, they get revalued every 5 years. It
Well,
does give
there
the
is a-
opportunity for someone to,
The point is, there is a process.
Yes.
The process is not in this commission though.
I don't know.
The process is not here. The process
I
is-
don't know if that's a process that's been successful throughout the state, but that's the option.
There is a process.
All right, then with that, I make a motion to approve the special permit application to construct a 160-foot tall communication tower and accessory structure and equipment as detailed on the site plan set. Tower Permitting Towers 3 LLC, site number CT 1G 444 dated May 12th, 2026. Revised June 1st, 2026 for the property located at 257 Osborne Road, Delgado Ballfield Complex, applicant Borough of Naugatuck, with the following conditions. 1, the applicant contractor engineer shall attend the pre-construction meeting with the borough land use and engineering staff prior to the start of any construction for the project. Number 2, a final as-built plan must be submitted to the Naugatuck Land Use for review, acceptance, and closure of the construction process in its entirety. Number 3, the special permit approval form provided by the land use office must be recorded on the land records in the Naugatuck Town Clerk's office within 90 days of the zoning commission approval vote date. Number 4, any proposed utility lines placed within the proposed utility easement shall be installed at the depth so as not to impact the future installation of the parking area to the south of the current access road. Number 5, the location, design, and sizing of the proposed dry well shall be approved by the Borough Engineering Department prior to installation. Number 6, proposed arborvitae trees shall be planted at a minimum height of at least 6 feet. Number 7, slip fencing shall be installed at the end of the utility easement abutting Osborne Road. Number 8, proposed construction fencing must be installed at the location that will not interfere with continued use of the ball field parking area during activity season periods. And number 9, positions to add trees to be determined by the engineering staff for camouflage.
Land use staff.
Was it
Land use staff.
land use staff?
Sorry.
All in favor? Opposed?
Thank you very much.
That's right, you got the rest of it.
Good luck, everyone.
Thank you for coming. Thank you, the city guy. Good job. Thank you.
It's time.
All right. We're done?
Yeah, I gotta go.
Me too.
Yeah.
Oh, he's like a dog.
Yeah.
You know, the old days, this was nothing, it was for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Sometimes we were here until midnight.
We're gonna open public hearing C at 6:15, the time is at 8:15. Special permit application for the proposed construction of a new retail building for the property located at 226 Rubber Avenue, applicant 226 Rubber Avenue LLC. Public hearing open at 17/2026. Must close by 7/23/26 unless an extension is declared. Was that? You have water?
What? We have water?
Water.
I'm fireman right there, first of all, water. Go ahead. You want a bottle, huh? I usually drink them, I don't have it. Somebody wanna go down in our deli?
There are some towns that do supply water. Board of Education.
We're lucky they have my files.
Can you imagine?
Board of Education supplies bottled water to their.
I'm guessing you have to get that one.
Gentlemen, you should set your stuff up. Guys, set it up here.
Keep it short.
They can see it.
What happened?
Here, Laura,
Thank
mine, 2.5.
Yes.
Warrior guy down.
Bring your neighbors, whatever you're gonna say.
Sure.
They're cute and they do grow tall, but starting
I
off,
should
they're not
provide it to me during the meeting.
for survival purposes.
All I have is the paper copy. Sent it.
Jim, do you
You
have it?
sent it, but you didn't tell me you needed it. What?
Will you turn it up there?
Well, they have it. You go through
But
it.
still, they must be behind.
Ned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just have to.
Someone's good luck. Be asked.
Or you gotta win the election.
You're entitled to. Now there's 5. Sometimes. One of them.
The rendering should be.
Further.
Yeah, we're gonna pull it up. We can pull it off the town. Well, it wouldn't matter, but in the future, you have to tell me what you,
So you gotta run.
Yeah.
I don't put up everything.
Thanks.
Well.
Oh,
Larry?
Yeah. So election, so next time. You can see.
Good evening, Ron Wolf, professional engineer, my office in Woodbury, representing the applicant Stacy Ferrari, who is the contract purchaser of the property and also the applicant. We'd just like to submit these certified mail receipts. Also with me this evening is Kevin Bennett and Nate Bennett of Bennett Sullivan Architects of Southbury, the project architect. Just like to go over the property a little bit with you. It's currently owned by the borough and is situated on the southeast corner of Rubber Avenue and Andrews Avenue. Total property has an area of 1.426 acres and is situated in the Rubber Avenue Design District. Surveying for the property was performed by Reardon Surveying of Southbury. This property, as you probably know, was a former site of the Naugatuck Recycling Center. Prior to that, it was owned by Uniroyal, where I had 3 buildings located on it. They've obviously since been removed. And currently the property is a mix of pavement and millings. Currently has like well, I believe it's Blossoms that occupies it now, where they sell retail flowers and vegetables. On the south side of the property, it's property is bounded by the Long Meadow Pond Brook. As you can see on this aerial photo, we have the proposed site plan superimposed over it. You have the Long Meadow Pond Brook on the lower side of your map, which is south, Andrew Avenue to the west, and Rubber Avenue, which was just recently reconstructed on the north side. Ms. Ferrari's current building is just a little bit further to the east, separated by 2 existing parking lots that exist today. And what Ms. Ferrari is proposing is to construct a 9,560 square foot retail building. It would be occupied by her as an appliance showroom. And there would be either 1 or 2 additional tenants on the east side of the building. Those 2 tenants haven't been secured yet, so they're undetermined at this time. We have a drainage system that we've designed for the site that consists of catch basins and a hydrodynamic separator that would provide water quality for the impervious surfaces on the site. We're proposing to utilize the existing curb cut that was left and just recently constructed, along with our, when Rubber Avenue was reconstructed. That's at the east end of the property, as you see there. We also have a curb cut on Andrew Avenue on the south side of the property. There's 2 existing curb cuts on Andrew Avenue now. We're proposing to close off the northerly one, which is closer to the intersection, and just have a one that's situated further to the south. We have 40 parking spaces proposed within the property. And they just want to put up another plan. And it's not an aerial. So as I mentioned earlier, the total property is 1.426 acres. Ms. Ferrari is contracted to not purchase the entire property, just the westerly portion of it. And we were gonna be doing a first cut on the lot, and the remaining easterly portion would be retained by the city, which is approximately 16,500 square foot, which we just did a preliminary layout of what a future one-way parking area would look like. It would be 13 parking spaces. Could be situated in that. And also that would align with the recently constructed curb cut that was done with the Rubber Avenue reconstruction.
Borough owned that.
The borough owns this entire parcel, including that.
From where their store is now all the way over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The borough owns, and the borough would be the one who split the lot and sell them just the parcel that they're gonna develop. They would not be developing.
And they're just gonna leave the parking lot.
That's the borough property. They would not be responsible.
Okay.
Let's see, so we have 40 parking spaces and 2 loading spaces proposed for the site. We recently got approval from WPCA. We have a proposed sewer connection to the existing sewer main that's on Andrew Avenue. We're proposing a grease trap in case there's ever a restaurant in one of the spaces. We would have a grease trap that's already ready to go, as well as a domestic sewer line, and then also installing a new water supply to the building. We have 2 locations for garbage and recycling, one at the east side of the property, which would be for Ferraris, and then one at the west side, which would be for the other 2 tenants. we're proposing to replace the existing chain link fence on the south side of the property that separates the upper flat area from the steep slope by the brook. We're proposing to install a 6-foot tall vinyl coated chain link fence, which would run along the south side of the building. We have a lighting plan that we submitted with full cutoff lighting fixtures. Some are building mounted, and there's 2 or 3, I believe, pole mounted fixtures. Landscaping plan also was submitted with a plant list. We do have a few comments to work out with the engineering department and zoning. We plan to do that in the next week or so. We did receive approval from the Wetlands Commission at their previous meeting. And as I mentioned earlier, WPCA has approved the site connected to the sewer. And also the fire department has approved the layout as well.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin Bennett, Bennett Sullivan Associates in Southbury. We've been with Stacy since the very beginning. She proposed to the borough what she would like to do there, and she was able to procure the approval from the board to allow her to purchase this property. Like Ron said, it's a 9,500 square foot building. She's going to take about 6,500 square feet for her appliance store. It's a single story wood frame building with 3 storefronts. And be probably 2/3 owner occupied. So we do have we passed out in the past the renderings. Are you able to pull that up?
We all have it.
Y'all have it?
Yeah, let's see.
So you're expecting 1 or 2 other? Oh,
It'll more than likely be Stacy Ferrari and 2/3 of it with 1 space allowed to be rented to a commercial or food service. The way the building is designed is it could have up to 3 tenants in the building. We tried to do flexibility in the very beginning so that if she wanted to take less than 2/3 of it, she could and have 2 additional tenants. But at this time, she's proposing to take 2/3, 1/3 will be rented.
You putting apartments in there?
No, sir.
She says 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 or more bedrooms.
You're on the wrong one.
It's all stapled together.
Are you looking at 923 or are you looking at
26 Rubber Avenue.
unless we screw something on the wrong page?
That's 26 Rubber Avenue.
It's
Wolf Engineering.
yeah. Let's say with the wrong thing to it. So, if you'd like, we can put a second floor on.
Well, there may be one across the street from your company.
My good. All right. I only had a little wine. No problem. Let her rip. Thank you.
So I sent you out my review on May 22nd. And I pointed, I'm gonna point out the big things because you told you wanted to come to this meeting. We wanted to come for responses. Finalize, talk about, because you're not looking for the approval tonight. You're willing to come back. Right. Okay. So one of the things I pointed out was the parcel size, but the site planner application did not give the size of the new proposed building. I did not see that anywhere. We talked about the size of the building. I looked at the site plan itself. It gave me elevations, but I did not see size. And
We didn't specifically put the size on the site plan, square footage wise, we usually don't, but I believe it was in the special permit application, but certainly we know that.
yeah, usually I would see, usually on your site layout and landscaping plan, you have Ferraris applying to give me the elevation, but you did not give me any dimensional space or anything on that, so I would think that would be beneficial to us to have.
The architecturals have, her space is, 6,908 square feet, and the proposed, food service would be 2,611 square feet.
Well, like I said,
We can add that.
just, I would add that in.
Yeah, no problem.
The other thing it was hard to determine the number of parking spaces because we don't have any floor patron space. And we know in these districts, we are allowed to make an idea of what we need for parking, but we don't know what to base it on at this point. So I would think that if you do come back, that you will tell us how that the 40 parking spaces will be in. Sure. And, and giving us an estimated layout, perhaps, of the interiors to help us with that.
It was basically a general, assumption of our, spaces per house should be.
Which could work possibly, but we base it on patron space and things like that.
And the commission's aware that may change.
Yeah.
This is just what you're suggested.
Yeah.
Your suggested uses are, and the parking associated with that, the commission then will make a decision that.
Right. What I'm saying,
Parking is based on our rate, the RAD.
give us this way to determine.
It's a sense, it's just give them a sense as to how to make the judgment.
And please correct me if I'm wrong in this point too. The restaurant space, do we need to see an outline like on like gutters, like oil traps or something here?
Again, we don't know the tenant yet.
That also be the building official. That's not something that.
Right.
Building officials.
We have posed a grease trap and we'll put it in the ground. It's in the building, so if there is a food service, they can tie into the line that goes into the grease trap prior to the sewer.
Oh,
Did they get put on UPCB?
Yeah.
Yes. We already went over that.
So I want to continue on with the site plan specific to landscaping. Should have some better details. You have a site layout plan and landscape plan that you did for us. And I just have, landscaping legend up at the top. But I'm seeing all these bushes along the front of the building, sides there, and I guess so, landscape island. I don't know what they correlate to.
Okay.
So perhaps usually we get a little bit better idea of what these are. Each one, so you could, and how that is to be determined. We could do that. On that we get something like that on it. Also, we have recently, and I discussed this with you guys, recently we've put in the street trees.
We're gonna locate
that you can locate those.
Yes.
The two dumpster, or the lighting plan you did provide, the two dumpster locations, both location enclosures should be detailed on the plans as to what they're gonna look like. I don't recall seeing that. They're on the plan as existing, but I don't know what type of fencing. I don't know anything that's what they look. We usually get that as a detail. Yeah.
We could provide, it would be just basically slatted chain link.
That's what we asked for. And then just you would provide that as well.
No.
Yeah.
Needs.
Yeah, you put it in.
Provided detail of
So the building renderings. At the time, I didn't have anything that was colorful.
Yep.
Now you have that for the planning meeting, where we took what you gave us at planning, and I kind of just tried to send that out to show what the building would look like. One of the things that threw me off of the building that we did discuss via email was you show a sidewalk on the building rendering in front, and Jim and I had talked about that. This is directly in front of the building, not along the road.
Correct.
But your plan, and I discussed, is the bush is gonna allow people to walk from store 1 to store 2 to store 3. And you guys said, no, they'll walk out in the parking lot. But the rendering shows you can walk in that area.
Okay.
So
I think when we got into doing that rendering was basically done for presentations to the borough from the beginning for what we would do with the building. We found that basically, Ferraris would have a main entrance here with a sidewalk around it.
and this would basically be their showroom area. This would more than likely not even be an attendant entrance. And then your restaurant would all be down here with a direct entrance and maybe some sort of outside seating. But the fact is that that is an entrance. Someday it could be a separate unit, 50 years from now. So my concern was that Jim and I discussed was people in the parking lot, how you
have to walk in parking through the access way, get to the buildings. Handicap people have to, use their wheelchairs or whatever in the drive.
we were trying to get actually a larger planted area in front of the building, so.
Yeah, I just would love you to look at that and look at the options of
And again, there is no parking.
either eliminating these plantings and just having a sidewalk or we narrowing the drive aisles and trying to get the small planting strip or something.
And again, I had the question on the rendering, your signage shows 3 tenants, but the site plan showed 2.
Yeah.
And we've answered that. And again, that's just something that I wanted to point out. Details for all parking lot and building signage should be provided on the plans. Any stop bars, any type of details, we generally have that as on a plan. And then when you're prepared, you should have a bond estimate given to us for any of the approvals. Those were the things that I had seen when I did my review of it. And I do have your review here, Jim. Was there any concerns that you might have had? We talked about the streets and the pedestrian layout. We talked about the property line adjustment. Again, we've talked about that. And
We'll need to go over this and get everything.
And I do want to thank you for going into Andrew Avenue, not into Rubber Avenue, since we just did it.
Yeah, just did the whole.
So that was good of it. But otherwise, I thought it was good. I mean, these are just minor little things that you correct for the next meeting.
What do you look at to start construction?
Right now, there's environmental cleanups that the borough is doing. That's gonna happen in July. Our closing is scheduled for August, and we would hope to break ground as soon after that as possible. She has financing in order and building permits and excavation equipment. So in regard to the housekeeping stuff, the police commission, fire commission have both approved this. The planning commission gave a positive referral. Jim took care of the engineering report. Inland wetlands, they did receive a permit from them because they're along the river there, and the water pollution control board has approved it. So these were all things that were after my May 27th. And this was noticed twice in the paper, and we have submitted the green cards for receipts.
Commissioners, anything else?
Oh, sure.
No.
Right, then we're gonna continue this for
Next month.
next month. Do you have any?
We will do you at 6:05. Next month.
Next month, 6:05,
What's the date?
7/22/26.
Yes, next month is the 4th Wednesday. Normally we do the 3rd Wednesday, but it is the 4th Wednesday. That was determined last year when we set up the schedule. And we won't be behind the cell phone tower.
Well,
You'll be out first.
Possibly power.
This is good for you. It's all about patience.
Yep.
They wore you out. Oh, good. That's what you want.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hey, guys. Thanks a lot. Good luck. Thank you.
All right. Well, the materials, so. Let me give you a list of the materials. We'll get those, what are they? I think I saw some, it looks like different uses of material coming, right? Yeah. You get a list of the materials that's the zoning office.
Yeah. What the building is made of. Yeah, it's basically hardy siding with AZAC trim.
That's a big detail. Put a letter frame.
It's on the elevation.
Oh, it is. Okay. Colors too, because it's architectural.
They have a color.
Is it the color that's shown? The colors that you present, those are the colors. Okay.
They present.
I know, I just. Going down this road. Yep. So that's this video.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
We are doing D next.
Commission discussion. Decision for a site plan modification for the building and grounds for property located in 88 Sheridan Drive, Underground LLC, and doing business in Copacated. Commission has 65 days to render a decision on its application by 6/18/26.
Yeah, so what that means is that this commission this has been before the commission, the site plan modification for 64 days at this point. We're supposed to render a decision within 65, unless we get a extension from an applicant. Okay. So that would be up to the applicant to give us the extension tonight.
Assuming we need them.
You need.
I need one? Why? Okay, for the record, my name is John Paul Garcia. I'm a licensed professional engineer in Lancaster, licensed practice in the state of Connecticut. Principal officer, 190 Fairwood Road, town of Bethany. I'm here representing Boca Paving in the development of a parcel at Sheridan Drive, the town of Naugatuck. We've resubmitted revised drawings with some changes that were asked for by the town staff. Those included moving the buildings out of the setback, which they've done. The two temporary buildings, Building Island, now been moved down to the bottom of the site. We moved the proposed fence to the property line. In most instances, we added a barrier up at the top of the slope. And that's basically the big items, unless there's something else that I'm missing. I think we covered between there anything. And then if there's any minor items, I'm sure those can be handled as a condition of approval. I know the town engineer had one comment regarding the location of the sewer line. And that we talked about. He suggested rather than doing 20-foot deep manholes, we zigzag it across the slope, which would reduce it. And I said at that point, we had talked about half a dozen other things. One of the things we can do is pump. Put in a 2-inch pump line and send it down to the sewer that way. And he is not adverse to that. And so that's probably what will get built. We also have to go to the WPCA, and it was suggested we go to the fire marshal with the fueling line here, and those would be done after the site plan.
So last month, I thought we requested that the silk fencing get installed, and I was out there today and I didn't see any silk fencing. According to C2 on your plan, there's supposed to be silk fencing along the whole project here, and all it is overgrown. There's been no effort there at all. There's silk fencing.
Well, okay, and the lower sites have been is temporarily stabilized, and the silt fence would be installed prior to construction. There is some silt fence, but not a lot. Yes. As you all know, down at the southwest corner.
There is a very little.
Very little. We showed it on the site tour.
Your plan showed a lot.
Yeah, at some point.
The applicant had applied to put in a shed a couple of months back, at which time I denied that shed and told him that once we do an approval of the whole site, we will allow the shed to be put on. The applicant installed that shed, connected power to it, has a propane tank, 100-gallon propane tank installed. He has water equipment all there. So he went again, did something against us.
That's since we located the poop houses?
Yes, I was out there today. And he has, it appears to me that he's washing his trucks there. It appears to be. I will say that there is no barrier along the area of where it drops off, because I walked right through it. So the parking lot, actually, you can drive right off the back and right down that hill. There is nothing there to stop anything. So there is no barrier. He did attempt, it looks like, to put a 1 foot drop, some gravel and whatnot, all around, starting to be around the edge. And maybe that's where the rocks is gonna go and whatnot.
Well, yes, but supposedly across the top, they had asked we had discussed this last time, though. And we had discussed putting a curve or something, but something to keep you from doing exactly that.
Right, so none of that's there, and there's cars all parked along it. I was kind of shocked to see a rather very well-built prison fence along the front of the property because it had barbed wire all across the top of it. And that's not something that I assumed was going to be put in our industrial park entrance. So I don't know who gave the approval for that. But it's got a gate that's an electronic gate that closes across, and this is just stuff that has completely annoyed me now at this point. And I'm thinking we should deny this and do a cease and desist order on this property because they continue to do stuff that they want to do, not what we're asking for. How that shed got put in after I told them not to do it.
News to me.
I'm not blaming you. I'm not blaming you.
Is this 3 months then?
4 months.
4 months.
And I'm sorry, but it appears to me the only thankful thing they did was move the hoop houses, which took 4 months to do. And they repaved a whole nother area where the hoop houses are. And they still haven't tore up where it was. So I am very frustrated now at this point. And I think I need to speak with Attorney Fitzpatrick tomorrow about what we should do about cease and desist and how we can move forward with this, because this is not what we expected.
What are the, I think we can have that discussion tomorrow, but where are we in the time frame for this?
We got 1 day.
He needs an extension, which I'll be more than happy to grant you a 35-day extension.
Which
see if we can
I'm
resolve.
willing to work with, but I'm gonna tell you right now, I want all water shut off. Because we never approved any water on this site. I don't even want the fuel stations operating. I want the fire marshal out there tomorrow because there's no bollards protecting anybody from driving into those things. And I might say to Matt, it's just frustrating that we have tried to work with them and they just do what they want.
Is there a reason that you didn't order a cease and desist?
Because I was trying to work with them.
Well,
Which they were willing to do some stuff. They told us they would do the silt fence. Is it done? No. They did absolutely nothing of what we asked. Yes, he provided drawings to us. I'm not blaming, it's not the engineer. They put us in that spot. And I want to know how that shed got installed. Because I didn't issue it. I want to know how are they washing trucks on that site? Because at this point, they have no drainage for that, especially when it's paving equipment. And where is that water going? I don't even think they're done with filling the site. Because according to this, you're supposed to be able to drive straight in on the tracking pad. And Charles, we were there today. You cannot, it's straight, if you drive in, it's down. If I drive in that entrance.
Yeah, I think the site's still about 2 or 3 feet low.
And how do they get electronic fence to work? Like, where are they getting that?
They hooked up electricity, they have got everything running there. They've got, I don't know how they got a propane tank installed. It's a 100-gallon propane tank. I don't know who is authorizing any of this because both the building inspector and fire marshal told me they have no permits. We discussed that last month specifically.
Yeah, we discussed all of this for 4 months. Not opposed to.
How's your night? What?
Yeah.
Well,
I go home, have a scotch, and I do this again tomorrow night. So it doesn't matter.
So the applicant,
Tomorrow night, do a warrant.
the applicant through its agent is making a request that the
30-day extension.
30-day, be 30 or 35, you said 35.
Yeah, it'd be 35.
35 days, well, you have to get
We'll talk
to,
tomorrow.
It's
you gotta get to the
It should
22nd.
get us to, because July 7th, or
Yeah,
July
July
22nd,
22nd,
place 17th, we should.
Yeah, you'll get there. Okay. So the commission wouldn't act so the applicant's making that request.
Fourth Wednesday.
Yes.
So it's the applicant's purviews to make that request. I can meet with you tomorrow.
Yes, Jim, you and I will go out.
Yeah, I'd like to get a report from you two about those issues, all those issues. And then we can discuss that in the interim. If there's no reason that can't be issued while an application is pending, you can do both things concurrently.
They should not be washing trucks at all.
Well,
There's no reason.
So we can't make that motion now because he's asked for a $35.
Yeah, the commission it wouldn't be appropriate for the commission to deny it tonight because he's asked for an extension. The applicant does have that right to ask.
Right, I get that, but we've also been 4 months of getting more and more and more and more.
Right, so the answer to that is that's an enforcement officer's issue, so the enforcement officer will then determine whether or not to what extent he wants to take action with regard to that. And then the commission's determination is the time frame on the application, and the applicant has requested the extension, and he's allowed to do that in statute. So I think the commission's role right now is you're sort of at you're in a holding pattern now. You are the one where
It is my understanding they did contact our office in regard to the fence along Sheridan Drive. I didn't speak to them.
I did.
Do you know who's the contact person? Signs their town, the engineer there.
Gene,
So his name, he called me in April, I don't have the exact date, he asked if they took down their fence in front of the property. Both of them wanted to put one up, I told them if it's permanent fence, it has to be on the site plan. But they can put up a construction fence on the property, and I said construction fence, chain link with a little fee. The one that Layden had a construction fence up, I think that.
I asked staff, does it make sense to suggest that the engineer here with both of you or meet you on the site when you do your review, or do you prefer not to say that?
I don't want to waste anybody's time here. If we gotta get the applicant on board.
Right. There you go.
Right, but.
Do you feel you have that?
Why don't you talk to the applicant and set up a time?
I will talk to the applicant tomorrow. I'll try to get a hold of you, and then we'll go from there. That's the safest way to go. I don't want to waste anybody's time.
No, and neither do we, but we've wasted 4 months.
I just also want to talk with Ed and Ned, about when and if this is approved, how we make sure that it actually gets developed in as we've designed it and in a timely fashion. I don't want to say we've approved this and it remains a dirt field that's being used for construction projects for the next however long permits are good for 10 years.
Can we give them only a temporary use for the hoop house?
Or change the design of some of the
Hoop houses are down, correct?
No, the hoop house has just been relocated.
They've been relocated.
That's the only thing they've done is relocate the fuel station.
But the hoop houses haven't been approved either, have they?
Oh, they told
Temporary, that's a questionable.
We were doing them as a temporary thing, but at this point,
Well, those are matters for the matters for the zoning officer and staff we should discuss those things. But I suggest that you and the engineer and the owner, if the owner is willing to cooperate, have a meeting on site and see what can be accomplished and what can't be. I mean, it sounds to me like there's many uses here that have not been approved by this commission. And that's the officers, that's your jurisdiction, so.
To Ed's point, when I first came onto the commission, this was brought before us, and listening to extensively, I asked Ed, why didn't he just deny the whole use, the contract in itself? And he said that he was trying to work with them. He brought up major safety issues regarding the fuel, regarding the hoop tanks, regarding they were going over into what is it, that line?
yeah.
And I mean, here we are again. It's 4 months down the road.
No question. I gotta run to work.
I'm okay with everything that you, put in your,
Oh,
So-
Maybe a question, so I have no opposition with that, I meant, so.
Alright.
I'm good. See you all later.
Take care, Joe. Happy Father's Day, Joe.
Let's see. Take care. I thought you did.
No, I'm just for, I guess, for me, when is enough is enough. Because this is like a safety hazard. They have a whole motorized gate there now. Like, when is enough enough?
Were you able to get in?
Yeah, it's open during the day, because then.
The gate defense I can understand, that's a little bit, the barbed wire, I don't know, do you have a regulation against that? Some towns have regulations against barbed wire.
I don't know the need for it.
Again, that's subjective. That I have mixed feelings about the fence being an issue, but the rest of it I understand completely, and I suggest. Let me get a hold of my client tomorrow. I'll call you back sometime tomorrow or Friday, and we'll see if we can do something on site to see if we can get this thing with the fence.
I've already, like I said, so the fire marshal may have major issues right now. Well,
Up the fueling island.
Yeah,
He should be, I mean, to me, that's the public health and safety issue of all the issues with you. That's the most important one. The other, of course, who fall into. Well,
The fueling island thing is typical. If you've ever been on construction sites, you set up fueling islands all the time.
Right, but
And-
the fire marshal is always there to approve it before it gets
It
constructed.
depends. Some towns yes, some towns no. You know, temporary fueling, you know, if it's an ongoing construction project, but this is, there may be a little bit different. So I think we have,
who installed the propane?
well, that's a whole different ballgame. That I don't know.
Well, but the site owner is responsible for what happens on his property.
Correct.
So he is responsible for the uses on the property, the construction on the property, any zoning violations or fire code violations. This commission is concerned about the zoning violations. He's responsible, whether it's a third party or or anybody else. So
Let's see, like I said, let's do this one step at a time.
this commissioner asks questions.
So as far as the fueling station, this is probably a question for you. Now, let's say something happens tomorrow, or an explosion happens, or something, an accident happens. Is the borough gonna be liable for having this conversation in return for the past 4 months? Yeah, I mean, we are aware of this issue.
It's a matter of probably something that may be discussed in a different session.
Okay, yeah.
But liability certainly exists. I would say mostly, primarily the property owner. I mean, the borough has immunity. There's different rules that apply. But I would say that it is certainly sounds to me like a serious public health and safety concern addressing that. And so that's why I think the fire marshal goes out there. That'll end right away when if he sees it and he reviews it and there's no compliance or there's.
What's he do with the propane?
Something, it probably cleans the,
Okay.
he probably heats up the water, it's probably heating up the water or something, because it's right next to the shed.
Heating the voice,
The lake set.
Or you're saying the shed.
Well, the shed is 10 by 12, I mean, the shed's only like 10 by.
Oh, the shed. And I'm talking about the hoop house.
No, it's not even near the hoop house.
It's not here.
Right next to the shed, there's a water gun, I can tell, that's probably looks the pressure.
Okay,
So that's for the
I'll
truck.
give you a call.
It's for the truck.
Guaranteed for the truck. These trucks are immaculate.
If there's a power hose there, like you said, that's got to be for the trucks. Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah, sorry about.
Good luck. Oh, well, yeah, you can't control the plant. I get it.
New business 4. Recent discussion regarding the smoke shop, vape shop regulation.
So I did hand to, Eileen and Lori worked on a set of them also, on that. I believe the town still has not done that.
We haven't, we are at the public hearing stage. It'll be next month. From the ordinance perspective, the Naugatuck Valley Health District attorneys are reviewing the draft, the ordinance that we provided. And so the borough has not yet adopted it. I mean, the public hearing will be next month. My guess is if they're satisfied, and that Caitlin has been very focused on this, and if there is satisfaction with the terms of the ordinance, they will likely vote as the borough board it works. Unless there's some questions or concerns raised, I doubt that they would just continue into the next month, because there's significant interest in adopting some very serious restrictions on the abuses that are going on in this area.
So I did speak with the police chief and the deputy chief in regard to what locations they consider smoke shops, vape shops in Naugatuck. What do you see in that? And they had Lieutenant Danielle Bailey get back to me with a list of what they considered were the smoke shops, vape shops. I provided that.
Yeah. Last page.
I went through. I visited some of them. I also found that one of them, Wacky Tobacco number 11, has been out of business for about 3 years. So that one is no longer in business. Number 4, Stogie's, used to be a downtown water power shop.
Yeah.
And he basically does have that in out by Ed's Hardware now. He's out there.
They moved out there.
And it's I was there a long time ago to get cigars for something, probably a golf tournament or something like that. And he's got to be near 80 years old now. Wow. And I think it's just basically his own little smoke shop or his cigar store that him and his buddies hang out in because they can't smoke at home.
And they play cards. They sit there and they play cards.
Yeah, he doesn't really, he doesn't do anything else.
Right.
But that's all he's out of the hat.
Harper's.
He used to be down next to Parker's.
Right. Parker's.
Yeah. And then he moved up to there, and it's
It's private.
Yeah, well, no, it's not private. It's store. You can go in and buy, but he's not there to sell.
He sells vape stuff?
Huh?
He sells vape stuff?
No, he doesn't.
Oh.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh.
He really doesn't do anything.
Right.
Other than his buddies keep their stuff there, and
Yeah.
they're all, like you said, they meet, they play cards. The bridge, the guy on Quinn Street isn't private. That's a
I'm sorry. That's true.
So there are 6, so if you count Stogies, there would be 6 on Rubber Avenue. Okay. But if you take Stogies away, there's 5. Number 7 is HK Convenience Smoke Shop. That's a little convenience store here across from Maple Street Bakery.
Yeah.
And I went in there today with Cheryl, and they have roughly, the store is basically 90% convenience store stuff. And then they have a small area of cigarettes and a small area of maybe some vape stuff. It's probably 5% of the store. It's about 3 shelves. That's all he is. To me, I don't consider him a smoke shop. He's a convenience store. He had more milk and other stuff in there. We even had T-shirts that he's selling. Than being a real smoke shop. So I would say he wouldn't even fall under the regulation. Number 8 is vape and snacks. Salem Square Plaza. He's right underneath the video store there. Cheryl and I went into that. The first thing the guy said to us after we introduced ourselves, "You want to buy the store?" Yes. He said, "I spend my whole day talking to my wife. No one comes in." He is a true vape and smoke shop, but he's not. I don't think he's there much longer. He says, "I get no customers." Vape Right is further on down. It's the plaza across the street from Dunkin' Donuts. You're in the back corner. There's a doctor's office there. Yeah. They've been there for quite some time. They at one time had 2 locations. They were there. And then they had one on North Main Street. But that one closed, and there's supposed to be a pharmacy going into it. Okay. But I don't know if that's happening or not. But they're there, so there is two on the Haven Road. They are about a mile and a half from each other. Now, of course, there's other grocery, there's other gas stations, which brings me to number 10, Pit Stop Gas Station. So they have a store about the same size as the Dunkin' Donuts is, where the Gulf Station is on Haven Road. I'm sorry, Cheryl and I went into there, and that store, they did have a big display case of vape stuff. It's all behind their counter. It's cigarettes, vape, and tobacco. I would say that store, well, we know it's probably a 1,500 square foot store, and they probably have about just the counter area behind them. Yeah, and as the guy said to me, he goes, well, you see 10 Marlboro boxes, they're all one deep. He goes, I'm just filling the shelf. He goes, honestly, they're about 5% of the store. The rest of the store is all food and, and not like gummies or things like that. It's all regular convenience store stuff.
7-Eleven stuff.
Yeah. And I did not get into Sid's Mart yet. That's the one on Bridge Street that he may have a little bit more, but that store is extremely small in size. So what I'm just trying to get at is there is about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 smoke shop, vape shops actually that I can find in this town. So I
just mentioned something. The others are probably considered smoke shops because they have to get an electronic nicotine delivery system license through the state of Connecticut. So if the police just pull up that list, you're gonna get anybody who sells vape because they have to have a license. So not necessarily a total vape store, but they sell the product.
And I would say every convenience store has some type of cigarettes, tobacco, but they're all in small amounts. They're not, the whole store. So I went directly to the police and I asked them, where are your locations? And they said, these are the ones that we consider, that we look at.
So are they saying that we don't need a regulation?
I don't think they're saying that we don't need a regulation. Because I think they would love to have a regulation. Well, what I'm saying is we're not getting people coming to us like crazy to open up these stores. I think if we're doing this, we should limit where they're located. One of the things you put was 1,500 feet from a library. 1,500 feet from Whittemore Library takes you up to Central Avenue School, takes you up to Walnut Street, takes you down to Rubber Avenue, and takes you out to Naugatuck Glass. I measured it on a map.
1,500 feet. That's all it is, Central Avenue.
Yeah, I put it right here on the map.
Right. I'm thinking.
I put it right here. Basically, we just took the B1 zone out of it. So my opinion would be well, last month we took something out of B1 zone. We shouldn't allow smoke shops in the B1 zone. We should sit there and just say, it's one thing to be about the location and this and that. Let's talk about not allowing them maybe even in the B2 zone anymore. The B2 zone is really Bridge Street. We have one over there. The one on Prospect Street, I didn't get into that. Oh, that was Wacky Tobacco. They've been out of business 3 years in that plaza. But the police still come up saying it's an active.
So what about since the legislature doesn't probably allow us to prohibit it?
Well,
regulate.
We can say in our chart that it's not allowed in
these in certain
B1 zone.
Right, but we can't say it's not allowed in town. The legislature doesn't give us that power.
I'm thinking we can allow it in the New Haven Road Design District.
The commercial districts.
Well, the commercial district is B1.
No, but the arterial roads, like which is Rubber Avenue and
New Haven Road. I'm saying that's where we should allow it, and that's
prohibited.
Just like we did with cannabis.
So we should.
And then we put the restriction on the distance between them.
We need to have Fred do a map.
I agree that we do a map.
Of
And
the
look at
existing.
Yeah, existing ones, but then look at
With
the
the
prohibitions and look at the distances and do concentric circles to see what's 1,000 feet, 500 feet, what's 1,500 feet.
It is, it is
We can do
difficult
that.
to say though, that we can't allow it near a licensed daycare. Home daycares are licensed daycares.
So,
We have many that we don't even know
yeah,
of.
no, well, I leave, the draft has a lot of good stuff in it.
It's, yes, it
A
does.
lot of good
Just
stuff.
needs to be tweaked.
But I'm thinking that we need to look at the zone more than the distance and then go with the
So
distance.
let me tell you the daycare center. So the daycare is the real tricky thing because you can have in-home. Daycare's open all over the place. You wouldn't even know half of them. You don't even need to be out before you. They don't even need rules for some of the smaller ones. So
They don't, anyone that.
right, so that some of the towns call them daycare centers. I think Greenwich has a nice set of regulations. But they limit their enforcement to areas that are more than 20%, 20% or more of the gross floor area. They have a larger buffer. So they have a 3,000-foot buffer, but I like their language because they do carve out cigar shops. So they make sure that cigar shops are not.
They're more of an
Not some-
outside function.
That's right.
Smoking.
So there's some, and Hamden, Waterbury has there's good aspects to a lot of them. They even has 1,000-foot, by the way, restriction, separation distance. Waterbury has some, is 500 from schools, residences, daycare centers, houses of worship. But it limits the smoke shops to the commercial arterial districts, which I think is smart.
Yeah,
If we're gonna
yeah,
Do
I
it.
agree.
So I did do some distances just to give you an idea on some of these. The distance from the one on Rubber Avenue, right here at the beginning near the roundabout,
Yep,
the distance from that one to the one in A1 Pizza, because there's one in A1
Yeah.
Pizza.
Yeah.
That is 630 feet. That is pretty close,
yeah,
all right? But the distance from A1 Pizza to the next one on Rubber Avenue is just under 3,000 feet. That would be the one that's in Paisanos Plaza. That is 2,983 feet. This, I just, did it on our GIS. And from Paisanos one to the one behind Grandpa's is 2,700 feet. But then you go from Grandpa's to the one in Mount View Plaza, and that's only 800 feet. So by limiting, we want to look at that distance, and that's Rubber Avenue design. That's where we have the most.
That's the biggest area for
By-
high school.
right, exactly.
They don't want it there.
They're going after the kids, so it's, how do we limit it to keep them away from the kids?
Right. But they're there now. And
Yeah, they would just be not conforming
Pre-existing,
uses,
no.
they're pre-existing, so.
But I'm saying those are the ones where we have it. The distance from the Maple Street one, which basically to me is a convenience store, to the Rubber Avenue one, is 2,700 feet. And then when I went out to Haven Road, like I said, the distance was 7,660 feet between the two. So. Again, I think if they're gonna open, they're gonna, if we're gonna allow. It's Rubber Avenue Design District and New Haven Road Design District, and then we put our distances.
Several communities have taken the position as a prohibiting them. I think there's one of the communities has a mitigation. So. I'm not sure we should take that approach. We don't know what the result of that will be. yet.
Right, the prohibition is legally challenging.
Correct.
So when somebody wants to challenge that, you may lose the whole thing. So it's going one step before being challenged.
Regulation, not elimination.
And then we will have to work hard on how to determine the square footage and how much it is.
And what are you going to exclude cigar shops? Are you going to, what do you,
Yeah.
we have a lot to discuss. And this is all, fairly, a la page, as they say. This is all current stuff. This is all right front page for a bunch of communities. So, there's a lot of ideas. There's 7 or 8 communities that adopted regulations, but they're all over the place, really. They're all over. We should discuss and think about it. Maybe, if we can meet next week as staff, and if somebody in the commission wants to attend, that'd be fine too.
For the record, I went over with Eli, he's very happy that we're working on these, he wished we started earlier. The mayor is very happy that we are working on these finally, because he brought it up to me a long time ago. No, because he brought it up a while ago and it didn't go anywhere and he was hoping for it then, but he's happy it's being worked on now. Who's the mayor, sir? When I went over this, he said for the record, he's happy this is being worked on, he just wished it started early. Well, but he's happy that.
Been going at it for a while, and I've been meeting the staff.
Yeah, I think I'm sorry, if you just let staff know if there's to set up something we can fit out, we can sit down with anybody. We can't have more than 2 members of the board though, because that constitutes a quorum.
So I think this addresses a good amount without being totally legally challenged. So I hope that we can work.
Yeah, this is an excellent basis, really. I think it's very good. I think it's.
And this is the 4th draft, so we went from a whole lot less to as strict as we can be without just prohibiting.
Right.
One question that doesn't really matter about, like the section 60 is, I don't think that's the section in the regulations that belongs, it should probably be right after cannabis. That's a minor.
Yeah, we get
Well,
that.
didn't you guys?
I did correct those.
Yeah, I highlighted it.
Yeah, I did it, yeah, okay, that's the reason I did it.
Yeah, no, I asked that, and I just kind of randomly, it's at the end of the.
Yeah, the
Oh,
number
you just
section,
went to the last section.
Yeah.
the numbering section.
Right.
Each one is for a different purpose.
Well, yeah, I know
Yes.
that, but I just,
And then I went back to 25%, that's what we had originally talked about, 50% is like half the store before we can regulate.
yes. I just went, everybody was like wanting to stay strict as possible.
And the other things I looked up is more definitions. Because we don't want that loophole, where. And the smoking paraphernalia should spell out in what we don't want in a window. Because if they prime the windows. So if you put 5 feet in, where you can't see it.
One of the lawsuits that's currently existing is a commercial free speech claim that the regulations unduly restrict and are really violating the property owners' due process rights. So you run against that constitutional claim. So if we can regulate it
5 feet
enough, or maybe
5 feet in instead of in the window.
I'm just saying that's one of the claims, and so it's so restrictive that it really takes away their property rights. We have to be somewhere where it's not so restrictive, but it is restrictive. We have to be in a place where we can defend it.
Is that regulation, not elimination?
Regulation, not elimination. Heard it here first.
The concern is with the moratorium. Opening and closing, or people that open, close, do whatever. I guess I'll have to discuss that with you as to if someone is selling something or relocating that's an easy one. No, now you can't relocate. But if someone right now I get people that open up shops and I didn't know they're open.
Well, and you know what?
I'm not talking smoke shops.
The police department is also aware that they're probably not aware of all of them. Right. So. That's just realistic discussion.
But what I'm just saying is, if the guy on 628 New Haven Road sells his store, That's an existing store.
Yeah, it runs, it's a use.
Right. It
So the
runs
use
with that
continue,
store.
the use continues until the
For-
commission acts.
For right now, during the moratorium.
Yes. That there's no, you can't suspend their due process rights. You can't do that while. Because they pre-exist.
But I am trying to watch,
regulate.
you know, I am trying to watch what people are opening downtown, what are, you know, I mean. Most people open up convenience stores or something like that, then it hybrids into something.
It is interesting to know, hear you though, talk about how very little of the portion seemed to be dedicated to this stuff.
And some of
I
it
wasn't aware of that. I probably should take up the hobby, I guess, but I mean, how would you know that?
You can go into any gas station, any convenience store, and they all have this stuff. They're small areas, they're not big.
But I mean, how many areas anyone stores as a kid need to buy stuff? That's, it doesn't matter how small it
But
is or
it's,
how big it is.
what I'm just saying, it's under 25%
Yeah,
of the store.
but I mean, like this one gas station, gas, smoke, you know? Might be this little, but advertising, come here and get.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, you know?
All good thoughts. So we should discuss that and any of the Burgesses who wish to attend, remember, don't only be two at a time. Commission, I'm sorry. Burgess is on the ordinance side.
All right, we have any public comment out there?
So we did that.
No, let's go.
Chairman report?
I gotta pee and I wanna go home.
Do both quick.
Ed, Gino?
No, just this, okay, May and June are tough months for grass cutting and getting people to mow their lawns.
Now you have.
Fine. Well, we did pick up some things.
Thank you for
Pools,
that. by the way.
I'll make a motion.
I took care of the alarm.
Adjourn, all in favor?
I would,
But it takes like some hours to track the people down.
Oh.
It's not easy to track the people down.
Where are those?